Welcome back to the channel. This is Trendy Storm and you are watching What If Baby Naruto was saved by Yoruichi. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe to this channel. Always wasting no time. Let's start the story.
The Kyuubi attack night Minato was with Kushina in an underground bunker. She wasn't expected for another 2 days, but he didn't want to take any chances because his village's safety and his kids' lives were on the line. He learned that he was expecting a child 9 months ago, and 3 months later that he was expecting twins of the opposite gender. Minato wanted to name the male child Naruto after the protagonist of his sensei's book Tales of a Gutsy Ninja, while Kushina wanted to name the female child Akane. According to an Anbu wearing a bear mask, Hokage Sama said, "Danzo." Sama says everything is clear. The Anbu vanished in a whirl of leaves after Minato nodded. Minato.kun. Do you really need an Anbu to give you the all clear every hour, on top of the detection barrier you have? Replied Kushina. Replied Minato, yes, it's my job as the Hokage to make sure the Kyuubi isn't released and my job as a father to make sure that my children make it into this world safely. I know, but the one with silver hair that reads the weird orange book sorta creeps me out a lit. Shish, someone is coming this way. Just as planned, a man who was around 5 feet 6 inches and wearing a white mask entered the room and fixed Minato with his gaze. Minato took a half step forward, drew out his trademark 3-pronged kunai, and held it defensively across his chest. Minato said, "Who are you?" in a tone that was dangerously low. The man wearing a mask declared, "An OG that wants the Kyuubi." After dropping his book and making a few hand gestures, the silver-haired Anbu charged at the OG with a fistful of lightning. However, as the fist connected, it went straight through the man, who then grabbed the shocked Anbu and threw a kunai at his kidney. Minato yelled, "Bastard," and began to charge at the stranger, but his lover's voice interrupted him. Kushina remarked, "Minato, my water broke." Turning to face the other 3 Anbu present, Minato instructed them to transport Kushina to the hospital and arrange for Tsunade to accompany them. The masked man and Minato were left to fight it out alone after the Anbu left with Kushina. Tsunade was drinking with Shizune, as she always does at night. When so many other things in her life went wrong, it was the only thing that could cheer her up. However, an Anbu entered her home and spilled 6 of her sake bottles, as if life were giving her another FU. Tsunade Sama stated that the Hokage said to go to the hospital and deliver Kushina, Sama's children. "It's a good thing I only had 12 bottles to drink," said Tsunade. "Come on, Shizune. Lead the wa-a." Shizune cried as he stumbled to stand up. Minato and the OG were hardly affected at all back at the secret bunker. The stranger merely said, "I'll be back." However, Minato was not going to allow the man to escape so easily, so he threw a kunai at him and teleported directly in front of him. The man was then kicked in the face with a roundhouse kick, but it was too late, and he disappeared into his left eye hole. With a sigh, Minato moved to Kushina. 6 hours into her labor, Kushina sounded like a banshee, screaming uncontrollably and expressing her agony with very bird-like language. Tsunade was beside her, studying something intriguing on the ceiling, when Minato suddenly entered the room, looked at Tsunade, and then tried to soothe her by holding her hand. "Don't tell me to calm down. Why don't you try and squeeze an infant out of your vagina?" Kushina yelled at him instead. While Shizune, still intoxicated, laughed at the idea of the Yondaime Hokage having a vagina, Tsunade watched the events unfold before her. 6 more hours later, a girl named Akane gave birth to a child from Kushina, and 10 minutes later, a boy named Naruto did the same. 20 dead Anbu later, the masked man reappeared and entered the room nonchalantly. The masked OG was introduced to Tsunade and the now boresome Jiraiya by Minato. As soon as he entered the room, Tsunade threw a right hook at his face, but it passed through as planned. Jiraiya then turned to finish her off, but was shocked when it passed through his back. A loud boom reverberated throughout the hospital as Jiraiya fell on top of Tsunade and his Rasengan struck the nearby wall. The masked man put a kunai to Kushina's throat, said, "Today the leaf falls," and disappeared into his left eye as Minato teleported back to Kushina to check on his kids. Before he collapsed on the ground, a badly cut nurse who claimed that one of his children had been taken stopped Minato from teleporting once more. When Minato returned to the nursery, Haru was still there but Naruto had already left. To follow Naruto, Minato instructed an Anbu to gather Shika Aburame, Heishi Hyuga, and Sume Inazuka. After nodding and accepting Naruto's blanket, the Anbu departed to locate the ninja he had been instructed to locate. Kushina was strung up by 4 black chains in the meantime, and her shirt was taken off to reveal the seal and almost cause the Og to bleed. Kushina was more afraid of the Kyuubi escaping and destroying the village her husband had worked so hard to defend than she was of being exposed. After completing his hand signals, the man approached Kushina and struck the seal with an open palm. Kushina felt as though her stomach would burst along with the rest of her body, but then a tornado or red chakra emerged from the seal and began to form the head, body, legs, and finally the dreaded 9 tails. Eventually, it came to an end, and Kushina was confronted by her now freed prisoner. The Kyuubi felt an odd chakra take control of him as he gazed at the man who had set him free. Under his mask, the masked man grinned and gave the order to demolish the village, which cost him the respect of both his younger brother and his clan. When Minato saw that the Kyuubi was going to crush them both, he teleported in front of Kushina, threw his knife as far as he could, and vanished in a flash of yellow light. Minato gazed at his wife's sleeping body and gave her a forehead kiss before heading out to tend to the Kyuubi. Jiraiya was obstructing the Kyuubi's entry into the village by standing atop Gamabunta. Jiraiya responded, "What the hell are supposed to do to him? He is the 9-tailed fox, second strongest of all the Biju." Jiraiya replied, "We only have to distract him until Minato or Hiruzen arrive." After exhaling some smoke, Gamabunta leapt into the air, shouting water style water bullets jutsu while making a few hand gestures. When Minato asked the man wearing the white mask, "What is your name?" the man replied, "Toby," and the two of them charged at each other. Minato was holding a 3-pronged kunai in one hand, and Toby was charging a plain kunai in his left, which he concealed in his right sleeve. About 3 feet away from the man wearing the mask, Minato threw his knife in the middle of his forehead, and Toby swung with his kunai, but before he reached Minato's temple, he vanished and reappeared on top of the man wearing the Rasengan. Unlike the knife, the Rasengan connected and pushed Toby to the ground, causing Toby to absorb the full force of the blast. "Hokage, it appears I underestimated you," Toby coughed up blood. Without acknowledging what he had said, Minato teleported to the Leaf Village. "Jackass," Toby said. Minato threw a 3-pronged kunai at Gamabunta and teleported to the village, where he saw Jiraiya riding on Gamabunta, who was desperately trying to land a hit while avoiding the Kyuubi. The water bullets that did strike did as much damage as a water balloon hitting a steel wall. His former pupil Jiraiya stood beside him and remarked, "Have some brilliant ideas?" Minato replied, "I'm going to summon the Soul Reaper. Go and get Akane from the hospital, she is on the 7th floor." Gamabunta was still engaged in mortal combat with the Kyuubi when Jiraiya nodded and went to fetch Akane. At 4 a.m., Hiruzen was awakened by an Anbu who informed him that the Kyuubi had been freed and was now attempting to destroy the village. The retired Hokage was initially shocked by this news, but he knew what he had to do, so he paid his last respects to his father, mother, and wife before leaving to complete his task. When the Kyuubi began to create a highly concentrated ball of chakra that would destroy the entire village and more, Minato was about ready with the summoning jutsu. Minato teleported to the spot where the ball would hit first, which was strangely the third's face, and was ready to use his signature jutsu to teleport the ball away. The ball was launched, stopped 3 feet in front of the Hokage monument, and caused a crack to appear across the third's face before being teleported 100 miles outside of Konoha. Minato was shocked to discover that Hiruzen had already called forth the Soul Reaper and was holding the Kyuubi down when he teleported back to the battleground with the Kyuubi. Minato rushed to him and inquired as to why. Hiruzen responded, "It's a shinobi's dream to die on the battlefield against a strong opponent, and you have a family to take care of." "I've been a dad for less than a day and I already lost one of my children," Minato thought, and his chest ached. The orange reminded Minato of his oldest son Kenji, who was the quintessential Namikaze with azure blue eyes and the family's signature orange hair tied in a ponytail that reaches his mid-back. He was short, about 3 feet 6 inches, and had the same attitude as his father. Minato noticed that the sun was beginning to rise, creating a brilliant orange against the blue heavens of the night. Then there was Akane and Naruto, his newborn children. Akane is the only one with red hair and hazel eyes. She resembles her mother remarkably, and Naruto has orange, spiky hair and blue eyes, just like his father. Minato's thoughts were interrupted when his sensei ran toward them with a pink bundle held protectively against his chest. Jiraiya nodded and showed Minato the red-haired infant. Minato then called forth a gray stone shrine with a cushion big enough to hold 1 infant and 6 candles, 3 on top and 3 on the bottom. Minato placed his child carefully on the cushion while Jiraiya got a napkin, dipped it in a bottle of milk, and gave it to the baby to suck on. Hiruzen pulled the cubus down and sealed it into the crying infant, causing the seal to take shape and form on the child's stomach. Hiruzen attempted to fall, but was stopped by a sobbing Jiraiya. A man with a white and green bowler hat, dull blonde hair, green shirt and pants, and a black overcoat with a white diamond pattern along the bottom stopped the Kumo ninjas that had taken Naruto from returning to their homeland. The man spoke first, followed by a woman with brown skin, purple hair, and yellow, feral looking eyes who was dressed in an orange sweatshirt with white shoulder pads and a one-piece training suit underneath. Well, am I correct in assuming that 4 Kumo Jonin are on a quest to recover one of the Hokage's children? The Kumo ninjas all wore the same outfit, a black training suit, a white shirt, and a black face mask that covered the entire head. "Who are you?" inquired the Kumo ninja in front. "Kazuki Urahara, a humble shopkeeper, and this is my assistant Yoruichi Shiwan," said the individual. "Assistant?" The woman glared at him. "I apologize, but what about a part-time manager?" The Kumo ninjas were sweating because they all believed that these were weak businesspeople. "What do you want?" inquired the Kumo ninja in the rear. Yoruichi said, "We want the child you are carrying." After exchanging glances, the Kumo ninjas burst out laughing. "How are you two going to take out the 4 best Jonin in Kum?" He started, but Yoruichi's elbow pierced his stomach. "It seems you got my part-time manager angry. I'll just turn around and cover my ears," said Kazuki. Kazuki turned around a few seconds later to find Yoruichi holding a blue bundle in her arms while standing in the center of the 4 unconscious Kumo ninja. Kazuki remarked, "That took longer than usual, you're getting rusty. You're lucky I have this brat in my arms or I would go over there and kick your ass. And you're going to have him in your hands for the next 8 years or at least until we can start to train him. Anyway, what makes this boy so unique? He has an ungodly amount of spiritual energy which makes him a prime target for hollows and a danger to those around him," Kazuki said, his eyes growing serious. "It simply indicates that he possesses a powerful Zanpakuto, which could work to our advantage." She walked away swaying her hips, saying, "Whatever, I want some nachos and since I'm going to be mommy you're going to play husband." Kazuki's eyes nearly bulged out of his eye sockets, and he had a nosebleed that would have made a normal man faint. However, Yoruichi was still troubled by something. "Are we going to send him back to his family?" "Yes, after we train him I'll tell him who his family is. I'm sure he will want to meet them so I'll leave him alone until he dies and goes to the Soul Society." "To what extent will we train him?" "We'll teach him Bankai, there is no telling who wants him." They then left to return to their shop. "I'm not sure how often I'll post these, but it's probably going to be every 3 days or so because I'm so bored in the military. Criticism is welcome. I had planned for Naruto to meet his family on his 15th birthday, but if you guys would prefer that he return sooner, please let me know." The day following the Kyuubi assault, Shikaku Nara was on the right side of his desk, staring out the window, while Minato sat in his desk chair with his face buried in his arms. Shikaku wanted to tell his friend something, but he wasn't sure what to say because he didn't want to give him false hope or reveal what had likely happened to his friend's child. What a drag, Shikaku thought. A knock on the office door caused Minato to look up and reveal his streaked face, which he quickly wiped away with his sleeves before allowing the ninjas to enter his office. Sume Inuzaku, Konoha's dog trainer and her devoted blue and white companion Kuromaru, entered first, followed by a man whom Minato recognized as Hiyashi Hyuga, a man with a stern face, white eyes, and a clay-colored trench coat that was buttoned up, sunglasses, and a big pot on his back, a Shibi Aburame. Hiyashi snorted at the team name but remained silent. "Team Sume reporting in Hokage." "Sama," said Sume. "What did you discover?" "We followed the trail into the woods but couldn't go any further because whoever took them crossed the border to Iwa." "Did you find anything else?" Hiyashi continued. "There were 4 ninja They all were wearing a black one-piece training suit and over that a white shirt. I wasn't able to make out the symbol on their headbands. The 3 tracker ninjas left the room after Minato nodded and said, "You're dismissed." However, before Sume did, she gave Minato back the white blanket, which she examined but did not touch. "What do you think?" he asked, glancing at Shikaku. The brilliant mind was thinking. "I doubt that whoever took him would go straight back to their country. They probably passed through Iwa knowing that we couldn't follow, then headed to wherever they came from." Shikaku noticed that his friend was not his normal self, but what sane man would be after having their son kidnapped and taken to an unknown location? Minato nodded once more. Shikaku nodded as Minato rose from his chair and said, "I'll be back. Kushina needs me right now." Minato then departed the room. Kumo. The Raikage's location. The Raikage was observing the 4 ninja in front of him. They were all wearing masks and their wounds were visible to him. The lone female ninja on the far left, who was the least injured, had a black eye and a swollen cheek. The Raikage turned to face her and inquired, "What happened?" The ninja bowed, moved forward, and declared, 2 individuals, 1 male and 1 female, who identified themselves as Kazuki Urahara and Yoruichi Shiwan, attacked us. Yoruichi had brown skin, long purple hair that was pulled back into a ponytail that reached her mid-back, and an orange sweatshirt. Kazuki, on the other hand, wore a green and white bowler hat and had shoulder-length dull blonde hair. They claimed to be store owners. "We have no idea how Kazuki fights, so Yoruichi was the one who attacked us. She either moved too quickly for us to see or used teleportation." She bowed once more before stepping back into position. The Raikage looked at his advisor and told her to gather a group of hunter ninja. Then he gave the 4 ninja instructions to draw a picture of the 2 people. The Raikage was shocked that someone other than himself and his brother Killer Bee could move that quickly, and he had to act because these people knew his secret and they weren't from his village. The Raikage said, "These are your targets you are authorized to kill on sight, do you understand?" After the hunter ninjas had been kneeling in front of him for 10 or so minutes. The Raikage then slid some papers across his desk and instructed the ninjas to stand after they had memorized the papers and placed them on the desk. The ninja hunters gave a nod. "All right, the Jonin behind you will tell you what we do know about these individuals because we don't know much about them. Good luck." The Raikage got up and walked out of the room because he had heard rumors that his brother was planning a concert in his yard and he didn't want to subject his people to his awful rhymes. Mansion of the Hokage. Kushina, who had been crying ever since learning that one of her children had been abducted, was sitting at the foot of her and Minato's bed, holding Akane in her lap and Kenji sitting next to her, resting his head on her shoulder. Rewind. Kushina woke up in a white hospital room with cards and flowers scattered everywhere. She slowly turned her head to the left and noticed that Minato was sitting next to her, holding her hand and pleading for her forgiveness. Although she was still feeling weak, she managed to say, "Minato, what's wrong?" Minato looked up, and his hold tightened on her hand, which she attempted to squeeze back but was unable to do so. "Kushina, please forgive me. Someone snuck in during the Kyuubi attack and took Naruto." Kushina was appalled by the news. "What about Akane?" she inquired. "She is still here. They only took Naruto." Kushina wrapped her arms around Akane and began to hum in between sobs, and Minato was about to leave when he heard her voice say, "Wait Minato, please don't leave me yet." Minato nodded and came back 5 minutes later holding Akane. "You're not angry with me?" Minato asked, glancing at her. "How can I be? You were protecting this village. If you had gone to save Naruto, the village probably would have been destroyed," Kushina said, turning to face her husband. Returning to the bed, Minato lay beside Kushina. Finish the flashback. Kushina was discharged from the hospital the following day and returned home, while Minato instructed Kenji to take care of his mother before departing to attend to matters at the Hokage Tower. "Have you eaten yet? The doctor said that you need a lot of carbs and protein." I don't know what doctors want females to eat after just giving birth and releasing a demon. Just bear with me. Kushina heard the front door open, and Minato entered the room a few seconds later. Kushina gave a no shake of her head. Kushina simply nodded her head in agreement when Minato offered to prepare her favorite dish, beef ramen. A 7-year-old Kenji asked Minato what was on his mind after he left to prepare some beef ramen. "Where is Naruto?" "Naruto was taken by some bad men, but don't worry, Dad will bring him back," Kushina said, putting on a false smile as she glanced at her eldest child. Her phony smile was even visible to the 7-year-old, who replied, "Don't worry mom, I'll bring Naruto back, if he wants me to or not." With a genuine smile on her face, Kushina said, "Kenji is right. I can't lose faith just yet." When Minato returned to the room about 3 minutes later, she couldn't help but smile at Kushina because of the determined and hopeful expression in her eyes. With less than modest manners, Kushina grabbed the bowl and began consuming the ramen greedily, causing the broth to splash all over Minato's face, clothes, and even Kenji, who wasn't even near her. When she was done, she held out her bowl and exclaimed, "More," in a voice that was almost animalistic. Minato quickly refilled the bowl after grabbing it out of fear of upsetting Kushina. After 8 years, Urahara's store on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, Naruto had to go out and catch his own food in the wild. As a result, he became very good at surviving alone. Today, a Friday, Naruto caught 2 large rabbits and was ready to begin skinning them when Yoruichi came out and offered to do it herself. Since Naruto detested the smell of raw rabbit inside, he gladly accepted Yoruichi's assistance. "Thanks again Ka-san," Naruto shouted. "No problem brat," was Yoruichi's reply. After waking up and washing his face and bush in the bathroom, Kazuki went to the kitchen to find Naruto grinning and shouting, "Good morning," to Dot-san. After saying, "Good morning, Naruto," in his usual morning voice, Kazuki nearly passed out. "Naruto, where's the food?" he cried out. In an attempt to have some lighthearted fun, Naruto said, "I'm sorry," to Dot-san, "but I couldn't find anything." Kazuki collapsed to his knees and began sobbing, saying, "No. Just kidding," to Dot-san. Ka-san said that she would cut up the rabbits, Naruto said, his perspiration dripping and his spine tingling. Yoruichi is preparing food. Kazuki was thrilled because, although Yoruichi was the best chef he had ever met, she didn't cook very often. From the kitchen, Yoruichi shouted, "Is there something you should tell Naruto?" Kazuki paused for a moment and then said, "Ooh, right that. Naruto, we begin your training today. We will teach you to first, to become a soul reaper, and second become a soul sage so you can use your soul reaper power in your human body." After witnessing Kazuki and Yoruichi battle hollows, Naruto was eager to begin his training. To Dot-san, Ka-san, "You're going to teach me to be as awesome as you guys," Naruto said. Kazuki replied, "Yes Naruto, but this training is difficult and very dangerous. You could potentially lose your life or become a hollow." After giving it some thought, Naruto declared, "If this training will help me protect you guys then I'll do it." In the kitchen, Yoruichi grinned and Kazuki nodded in agreement. "He's just like you, Minato," she thought. Naruto and Kazuki thought the food was the best in the world when Yoruichi brought it in a few minutes later. Village of Konoha. After being woken up by her mother, Akane groggily got up and went to her bathroom to prepare for the most significant day of her life, the day she finally becomes a ninja. She ran down the stairs, eating breakfast, which she didn't need because she gets off early today anyhow, and kissed her mother goodbye before leaving. When Akane heard her mother say, "Aren't you forgetting something?" she was ready to leave. After making a quick double check, Akane realized she had left her headband in her room. She hurried back up the stairs, retrieved it from a jewelry box to prevent scratches, tied it loosely around her neck, and then leapt out her window. She chose to sit with her friends at the academy rather than where she was supposed to sit because it was the last day, so Iruka sensei shouldn't care. Sakura Haru, who had shoulder-length pink hair that reached her bottom and brilliant green eyes, and Hinata Hyuga, who had shoulder-length blue hair and pearl-colored eyes without pupils, were seated to her left. Sakura was in love with Sasuke Uchiha. Akane wasn't sure what she saw in the man, but she wouldn't pass judgment on one of her closest friends. Perhaps it was the dead look in his eyes, and he had lost his entire family except for his brother, but Itachi was the one who killed everyone, Akane believed. Then Ruka entered the room with a piece of paper with this year's teacher Jonin's team on it in his right hand. Akane was listening intently, knowing that she would not be on the same team as both of her best friends, but she could be on the same team as at least one of them, and then she heard her name. Team 7 Akane Namikaze, Sasuke Uchiha, Sakura Haru. Akane glanced at Hinata, who had a dejected expression on her face. Because of her shy personality, Hinata found it difficult to make new friends, but she knew that if she remained with the same people for a long enough period of time, she would have no trouble making friends. especially after they realized how kind she is. Team 8 Kiba Inuzaku, Shino Aburame, Hinata Hyuga. Before Hinata left to sit with her team, Akane gave her a hug. She didn't think any of them knew one another because Shino was always by himself and Kiba was a crazy kid. Akane was setting up a trap. Sakura was trying to stop Akane, and Sasuke looked indifferent. After Iruka finished calling out the names, the teacher Jonin entered and took their respective teams, but one team's teacher didn't show up, so they took sevens. After 2 hours or so, Kakashi finally arrived, only to be confronted by a blackboard eraser to the top of his head, while Sakura apologized and Akane was laughing uncontrollably. After a few minutes, they were all on the roof when Kakashi said, "Why don't we get to know each other? I'll start." "Your turn," he said, pointing to Akane. "My name is Kakashi, and I have a lot of likes and dislikes. My dream? Well, I don't feel like telling you." After Akane nodded, Kakashi pointed to Sakura and said, "My name is Akane Namikaze. I like ramen. I dislike vegetables, and my dream is to become Hokage and bring my little brother back to Konoha." She looked at Sasuke and said, "My name is Sakura Haru, and I don't like people who prevent me from getting what I like, and as for my dream, I want to earn the approval of," she said, looking at Sasuke once more. Kakashi nodded and then gestured to Sasuke. Kakashi might be troubled by the statement, "My name is Sasuke Uchiha. I like very few things. I dislike a lot of things, and my dream is to kill a certain man." Before he vanished in a cloud of smoke, he said, "Well, I think we know each other well enough. Meet me at training ground 7 at 4 a.m. and don't eat anything, you'll just end up throwing it back up." "We should train with each other to get prepared for tomorrow," said Akane. Sakura verbally agreed, and the Uchiha merely nodded before leaving. "Underground training ground at Urahara shop. No wait, stop," was the cry that went down Yoruichi's cheek as she told Kazuki, "I'm going to end him." Naruto was in a 30-foot deep pit, and according to Kazuki, he had been there for 2 days. At that point, the chain began to break apart at a startling rate, and a hole appeared in the middle of his chest. To which Kazuki replied, "No, not yet, he still has a chance." Yelling, Yoruichi said, "Look at him, he is becoming a hollow." In response, Kazuki said coolly, "He just entered his spirit world, look at his spiritual pressure." When Yoruichi realized he was correct, she sat down again in the hopes that he would be alright. "Naruto, you have to find your Zanpakuto." Naruto was standing on a skyscraper, but he was not falling. When he opened his eyes, he saw that he was looking at the ground, and he quickly flattened his body against a window. He saw that this world was falling in and turning into white cubes. Suddenly, he was falling, but he didn't hit the ground with a splat, instead, he was floating. When Naruto turned around, he saw a man who was roughly 6 feet 2 inches tall, with long, wavy hair that reached his upper back, a black cloak, a white collar, and red-tinted sunglasses. "It's in one of these cubes." After nodding, Naruto began frantically opening the boxes, but to no avail, until an idea suddenly occurred to him. Rewind. Naruto was sitting on a rock staring at the sky, and Yoruichi was doing the same thing. Yoruichi looked down at Naruto and simply stared at him for a while, but Naruto noticed and looked up at Yoruichi, asking, "What is it, Ka-san?" According to Yoruichi, "I was just looking at your spirit ribbon." "What am I?" "It's ribbon that tells me if you're a soul reaper or a human." "Can you demonstrate the process for me?" "Sure. First close your eyes and concentrate on the spiritual energy around you. Then after you think you got it, then open your eyes." When Naruto opened his eyes, he saw ribbons all around him, most of them white, but 2 of them were red and 1 was pink. He followed the red ribbon to Yoruichi and the pink one to Kazuki, and the pink one went directly to his chest. Naruto nodded and closed his eyes, feeling everything that gave off a spiritual vibe, including the birds and the trees. "Why is my ribbon pink, Ka-san?" "Because you are not a complete human being, nor are you a complete soul reaper. Your ribbon will turn completely red when we begin your training." Naruto nodded and proceeded to follow additional ribbons to see where they led. Final flashback. Naruto closed his eyes and began to focus on the spiritual energies surrounding him. When he opened his eyes, he saw a single red ribbon, grabbed it, and began to move toward its source. After determining its origin, he opened the box and discovered the hilt of a sword. He pulled it out and discovered that it was an enormous cleaver that was at least 2 feet taller than he was, with a silver sharp edge and a black handle. Naruto felt as though he was being jolted out of this world and back into his own. When Yoruichi looked down at the nearly fully hollowified Naruto, she was shocked when the hollowification stopped and the figure simply stood there for a moment before leaping out of the hole in a white blur. Yoruichi was taken aback by the speed of the jump and staggered back, but when she looked at the figure again, she saw that it had a mask that resembled a hollow's but an enormous cleaver that resembled a zanpakuto. "Naruto," she said in a soft voice. The figure simply stood there and said nothing in response, and then the hollowified bones began to fade away, leaving Naruto with his zanpakuto and a hollow mask. He removed the mask, examined it, put it in his shirt, and then examined his sword. Normally, Yoruichi wouldn't show affection like this, so Naruto was shocked when she ran up to him and pulled him into an embrace. "Ka-san, is everything okay?" Refusing to show the tears streaming from her eyes, Yoruichi withdrew and turned around, whispering, "Baka." Kazuki was taken aback by the size of Naruto's zanpakuto and the fact that it had already been released, but he was even more taken aback by Yoruichi's tears. Although he had never witnessed her cry before, the fact that she was crying over this boy caused him to view her in a different way. "Seventh training ground. You failed to get even a single bell from me," Kakashi said, glancing at the 3 weary genin in front of him. Despite his warning that one of them would return to the academy if they failed, they continued to work together, and it appeared that Akane was preparing to take the fall. The 3 genin looked down in dismay as Kakashi added, "And for that you a pass." Those words sliced deep into their pride. The genin raised their heads in bewilderment, and Akane was the first to say, "But Kakashi Sensei, we failed to retrieve a bell." "True, but this test wasn't to see if you 3 could actually get a bell from me, it was to see if you 3 would turn on each other if you knew that one of you would have to take the fall," Kakashi clarified. Sakura and Akane embraced, while Sasuke appeared uninterested. "Well, you're excused for the rest of today. Get some rest because tomorrow we start training." After passing their sensei's test, they each went their separate ways to inform their families. The Konoha Forest Kenji, a 13-year-old jonin in Konoha, was standing in front of a severely battered Kumo Hunter ninja with his 3-person team, which also included Itachi Uchiha and Ren, a medic ninja. Ren is a year younger than Kenji and is still chunin. She has long dark hair that reaches the back of her thigh, a single bang covering her left eye and part of her cheek, and big, pink lips. Her eyes are raven black, and she has a crush on Kenji but is too scared to tell him. Kenji, on the other hand, also harbored feelings for her but was too scared of rejection to tell her. When Itachi was finally done tying up the Kumo ninja, he threw him over his back and turned to see that Kenji was staring at Ren out of the corner of his eye while Ren was attempting to sneak a glimpse of him. After giving Konoha a curious glance, Itachi remarked, "We should get this ninja to Ibiki and Inoichi." After Kenji and Ren returned to reality and nodded, the 3 ninjas left for their homes. Ren noticed this and moved her hair over her shoulder, swaying a bit more than usual and making the bump in Kenji's pants much larger. Kenji offered to take up the rear to stare at Ren's rear, and he couldn't help but get turned on. After 6 years, Urahara's store Naruto was lying on a rock, his hand raised, and he was looking into his palm. 4 years ago, Naruto had mastered Bankai, but there had been some complications. First, he had discovered that he had an inner hollow self that would sometimes paralyze him in battle and leave him vulnerable to his opponent. Naruto met the Vizards, who helped him stop and even control the Dark Naruto's powers to a certain extent, but not completely. In order to use his Soul Reaper abilities in his human body, he had to sign a contract. Rewind Kazuki called forth the original Soul Reaper, a tall, purple-skinned, long-haired man with a short sword in his mouth who wore a kimono, and asked him to accept Naruto as one of his subordinates. At first, Kazuki believed that the Soul Reaper would reject him, but then he returned with a black scroll and threw it to Naruto. Kazuki instructed Naruto to sign his name in blood, which he did, and Naruto returned the scroll to the Soul Reaper, who placed it on Naruto's back before saying, "You will be the carrier of this contract, don't lose it and take good care of it. Don't let anyone sign it unless you think they deserve to. When your life is over, I will get it back." "Why have you given me the scroll?" Naruto asked. "Because you are destined for greatness." Naruto turned to face Kazuki, who was staring at the child, as the Soul Reaper vanished. "What?" Naruto inquired. Kazuki said, "You got his contract from the Soul Reaper." "Yes, you also have one, don't you?" "No, he only has one, and for him to give you his must mean that he sees something in you," Kazuki said calmly. Although Naruto didn't want this kind of responsibility, he wanted to return the scroll, but it was too late. Naruto said, "Damn." Naruto stopped listening to the statement. "Baka, you should feel privileged, he gave you a," but pretended to be because it was the right thing to do. Finish the flashback. After that, Naruto had to learn how to use his Soul Reaper powers, which he used in both his human and soul bodies. It took him nearly 2 years to figure out how to quickly draw spiritual pressure while moving and fighting, and he finally discovered that the simplest method was to quickly release a lot of killing intent and then quickly shut it off before anyone noticed. Yoruichi said, "Naruto, we need to talk." "All right, Ka-san, how are you?" "As you are aware, we are not your real parents, but I think it's about time that you finally find out who they are and decide if you want to meet them or stay with us." Although he was aware that Kazuki and Yoruichi were not his biological parents, Naruto occasionally wished they were because they were his best friends, his role models, and his caregivers for as long as he could remember. Nevertheless, he continued to wonder who his biological parents were. "Who are they?" Naruto inquired. "Your mother is the last person left in Whirlpool Country, and your father is the Yondaime Hokage of Konoha. You also have an older twin sister named Akane, who is likely to become the next Hokage of Konoha and the next Toad Sage, and an older brother named Kenji, who is regarded as a prodigy." Naruto was taken aback and unsure of what to think, but he was certain that he wanted to meet these people. He wants to see his real family at least once in his lifetime, even if they reject him. Naruto decided what he would do. "I want to see them." Yoruichi nodded and let out a sigh of relief inside herself because she believed Naruto had grown too attached to them and had lost interest in his biological family. "Okay, but Kazuki bet all of our money yesterday at a watering hole, so you're going to have to find a way to make your own money." Naruto nodded. This was a disadvantage, but he would do it if it allowed him to see his real family. Yoruichi inquired, "So when do you plan on leaving?" Naruto replied, "Right now." "Okay then. You are your own man now, but if you ever need a place to come back to, you know how to find us." Yoruichi and Naruto both got to their feet. Naruto remarked, "I guess this is goodbye." Instead of answering, Yoruichi hugged Naruto and said, "Be careful, brat. I know Ka-san I will be and who could take on the great soul sage Naruto." As Yoruichi watched the boy go, she simply grinned. The town of Kumo. As he walked down the street, Naruto wore his hollow mask with a black cloth fastened to the back to hide his hair and conceal his entire head. In the end, Naruto needed 1,000 ryo to cover the cost of the boat fare and lodging, so he had to figure out a way to earn money. He had the option of setting up camp in the wilderness, but he chose not to since he was terrified of being alone in the forest at such a late hour. Ironically, despite his daily battles with demons, he was unable to sleep in the forest. Naruto saw a tall ninja with long, white hair, 2 red streaks running down his face, and a few dozen women surrounding him on a stand, as if God had heard his prayers. Naruto approached the ninja on the stand and inquired about his salary. In response, the ninja said, "Name your price." "I want to get to Konoha and 200 ryo. "Fine, but first you have to show me that you can actually be useful to me and not a burden. Judging by that scroll on your back, you're a sage also, which must mean that you are strong, am I wrong?" "No, and I have no problem displaying my skills." "Fine, then follow me." About 2 miles from the town they had just left, Naruto and Jiraiya stood in a clearing. "Okay, let's start." With a nod, Naruto extended his right hand, causing his Zanpakuto to appear and putting him in his battle stance. When Jiraiya saw the sword in his opponent's hand, he thought it was heavy and the sensation of cold steel against Jiraiya's neck broke his reverie. He turned to see the man in the mask standing directly behind him, his sword pressed to his neck. "I didn't even see him move, which is amazing," Jiraiya pondered. "Well, it looks as if I won't be much of a challenge to you on this form. Give me a second and let me turn into sage mode." After nodding, Naruto leapt back. Jiraiya summoned 2 tiny frogs to sit on his shoulders using a summoning jutsu. The male frog asked, "What is it, Jiraiya boy? Why have you called us?" Jiraiya gestured to Naruto and said, "I'm sorry to bother you all, but I need some assistance assessing his strength. As the female frog put it, sure we'll help you Jiraiya. Hama wait. Boy, is that the Soul Reaper summoning contract? Naruto gave a nod. Jiraiya. Boy, we stand no chance against this boy even with Sage Mode. He is that strong huh? Yes. The Soul Reaper only gives his contract to the strongest of Soul Reapers. Which means that this kid is a lot more than he seems. Jiraiya paused for a moment before responding. You're hired. I have 2 missions. The first is to collect some research about the female anatomy, and second is to infiltrate Rain Country and gather information. Both of these will take about 6 months, then a 3-month trip back to Konoha. Do you still accept? Once more, Naruto nodded. Good. Well, now let's become acquainted with each other. My name is Jiraiya of the Sage. I am 52 years old and about to retire after this last mission. I write an Icha Icha series which is a bestseller in most countries, but this book may be my last. Your turn. I don't know my real name, but you can call me Naruto. I am 15 years old and a soul sage. There really isn't much more to say. Come on, let's find a hotel room where we can stay in. I hate camping in the woods, Jiraiya said after nodding. With a sigh of relief, Naruto went to follow his boss. After 2 months, Naruto awoke from an extremely wet dream. Fortunately for him, he had slept naked, even though his covers were soaked. In addition to taking a shower, he brought Jiraiya's Icha Icha book with him. After feeling a great sense of relief, Naruto searched the town for Jiraiya, first in the hot spring room, then in the neighborhood brothel, and finally back at the hotel room, but he was unable to locate him. For a brief moment, he believed it was safe to remove his mask, but a kunai grabbed it out of his grasp. He was about to turn around when he saw that the kunai bore the kanji for Toad, which could only indicate that Jiraiya owned it. I'm sorry to do this, but I have to make sure that you're not one of my enemy's spies. In the 2 months that they had spent together, Naruto and Jiraiya had grown close, but Naruto had never once revealed his face to Jiraiya. Naruto was supposed to show him when they arrived in Konoha, but it appears that he must do so now. Naruto wasn't upset or furious with Jiraiya because, over the course of their 2 months together, they had several assassination attempts that were all thwarted, so Naruto could totally understand his perspective. He heard Jiraiya gasp as he slowly started to turn around. When Jiraiya turned around completely, he noticed that the child he had been traveling with looked remarkably like his current Hokage and former pupil. After a moment of staring, Jiraiya declared, "We are returning to the village at this time." After some initial confusion, Naruto managed to piece everything together. Naruto said in his mind, "I must look more like my father than I thought." Naruto just gave another nod. Jiraiya attempted to grab Naruto's orange book, but Naruto quickly moved out of his way as he began reading it. Jiraiya thought, Kushina is going to kill me. The Konoha Road. Naruto wanted to ask Jiraiya, Sama, why are we going back to Konoha before completing your mission? Even though he already knew the answer. I need to know something. Then Naruto scowled beneath his mask. He wasn't expecting that response. After 3 months 3 minutes later, Naruto and Jiraiya arrived at the gates of Konoha, which were roughly half a mile away. 2 Konoha Chunin sat in a booth. One wore his headband like a doodah rag, while the other had a bandage around his nose. Hello Jiraiya. Sama, we need to identify your friend. With a nod, Naruto removed his mask. Hokage. Sama, said the man. My apologies, I didn't recognize you. He is not the Hokage, his name is Naruto. Surprised, both guards looked up. Naruto trailed behind Jiraiya as he left. They walked for roughly 10 minutes before coming to a white, 40.6 story building. The size of the hospital in front of Naruto left him speechless. Jiraiya whispered a few words to the receptionist as they walked in, and she gave Naruto a startled look before taking his hand and guiding him to an empty room. 2 minutes or so later, a doctor with pink hair entered the room. When she turned to face the patient again, he put a sword to her neck and commanded, "Get that needle away from me." Normally we would have a nurse get blood from a patient, but seeing as Jiraiya found Naruto sleeping soundly in the bed when he entered the room where he was being held. "Hey there Sakura, were you able to get the blood?" he said, turning to face the pink-haired physician. "Yay, but we had to tranquilize his first. He didn't put up a fight?" asked Jiraiya, who appeared intrigued. Sakura gestured toward the ceiling and the wall behind Jiraiya. He turned to find the wall covered in cuts, some of which were deep enough to reach into the adjacent room. Guess he didn't like needles. I'll have the results ready in 2 hours. Is that mask stapled to his face? No. Why? I couldn't get it off. After she departed, Jiraiya turned to face his employee and attempted, but was unable, to remove the mask. Jiraiya was charging a Rasengan when she thought it was a bit excessive and undid it. An hour later, Naruto awoke. He recalled the pink-haired doctor giving him an injection, but everything else was a blur. As he slowly stood up, Naruto noticed Jiraiya writing something on a chair beside him, which he assumed was about his upcoming book. He decided it would be better to wait for the next book even though he really wanted to flash step and grab the rough draft. After taking the orange book out of his pocket, Naruto began reading it once more. Jiraiya sighed as he examined the book in his hands. The door of the room opened abruptly, and 2 men with yellow hair and 2 women with red hair rushed in. "Naruto," said the older woman. After inserting the book into his shirt, Naruto removed his mask. Before she could reach him, Naruto flash stepped aside and asked, "Who are you?" The older redhead hurried up to embrace Naruto. She was deeply offended by the statement, "I'm Kushina Namikaze, your mother." Naruto felt butterflies in his stomach, his eyes grew wide, and his sword broke apart. Once more, Kushina hurried up, but this time she started crying in her child's chest. The Namikaze family was reunited for the first time in a long time, with Akane coming next, followed by Minato and Kenji. That concludes this chapter. At the age of 15, Naruto first meets his family, adores Jiraiya's books, and is stronger than Jiraiya in Sage Mode. He is only marginally stronger when using Bankai. We welcome criticism. Have any of you heard about Naruto's return to Toonami? My younger brother told me a few days ago, and I was almost shocked. He explained that it was the first series and not Shippuden, but it was still better than no Naruto, right? Hospital in Konoha. While Minato and Kenji were studying Naruto, Kushina was holding on to him as if she were afraid of losing him again, and Akane was sitting on the hospital bed grinning to herself because she had her brother back. Naruto was relieved that despite his extended absence, his family had embraced him so quickly. "Kushina, we need to take Naruto to Yoruichi and Ibiki. Give me a few more minutes." Kushina's hold on Naruto grew tighter. Minato glanced at the clock and nodded. 5 minutes later, Kushina released Naruto and showed off her tear-streaked face. After giving Minato a nod, Kushina instructed his long-lost son to follow him. After giving his father a nod and grabbing his scroll, Naruto followed him out of the building and to another one that was roughly 3 miles away. 2 men met them when they got there. The man on the left was around 6 feet 4 with dark skin and 2 scars down his face. He had a headband wrapped around his head like a doodah rag. The man next to him had long blonde hair tied in a ponytail and was around 5 feet 11. As stated by the man on the left, "We are ready for him, Hokage-sama." After giving a nod, Minato instructed Naruto to follow the 2 men. Following instructions, Naruto went down a hallway and into the 3rd room to his left, which had the words, "Mind Reading," written on it. Naruto was instructed to sit on a wooden chair that had ankle and wrist restraints. Naruto thought pitifully that he could escape these without even attempting. "I'm going to start the mind transfer jutsu, please relax." When Inoichi touched his head, Naruto said, "Proceed carefully. I cannot guarantee that you will be sane after seeing my memories." Naruto nodded as usual. "Boy, I've seen a lot. I doubt that you hold anything I haven't seen before." Inoichi then began to read Naruto's memories after entering his head. He observed that he spent the first few years of his life with Kazuki Urahara and Yoruichi Shiwan. There was a void until Naruto was 12 years old, after he turned 8. Naruto began training to become a soul sage, but what he witnessed next caused Inoichi to have nightmares until he was 60. The first hollow he saw was a hideous humanoid figure wearing a mask. He observed a small child, most likely no older than 5, being eaten by one of these hollows. The boy was crying in agony and screaming. The hollow turned around and revealed its glowing yellow eyes to Naruto and Inoichi as Naruto hurried to stop it. Inoichi lost it and left the boy's head, but he backed up too quickly, causing his actual body to stagger back and collide with the wall behind him. He gazed at the boy for a moment before settling into a seated position. Ibiki approached his partner and assisted him in standing up. Asked Ibiki, "What did you see?" I'll tell you and the Hokage at the same time. I don't want to even think about it without having to. Ibiki turned to face Naruto after nodding. What did he see? This is the first time I've ever seen Inoichi react this way. Kushina, Sama and Akane. Sama are waiting at the front room. I trust you know your way back. After nodding, Naruto walked away. His mother was waiting for him in the front room when he arrived. After donning his mask, Naruto approached his mother. Naruto, are you done? Naruto gave a nod. Kushina took Naruto's hand and escorted him to his new residence, saying, Good, I'm going to take you home. Night in the Hokage Tower. The room was brightly lit by an overhead light as Inoichi and Ibiki stood in front of the Hokage. Inoichi attempted to gaze out the window, but all he saw was his own image. The first thing the Hokage said was, Inoichi, what did you see? The two people that raised Naruto are Yoruichi Shiwan and Kazuki Urahara. They stop. Minato, Yoruichi, and Kazuki had been on his genin team for 6 years prior to their fictitious mission to look after his sensei. They reared his son, but they perished on that mission. No, it is not feasible. He reasoned that since their bodies were being buried, they couldn't possibly still be alive. Continue. Inoichi continued where he had left off. Yoruichi has light brown skin, long purple hair and yellow eyes. Kazuki has dull blonde hair and always wears a white and green bowler hat. Stop, Minato repeated. Yoruichi and Kazuki's appearance in life was exactly like the descriptions Inoichi gave him. Minato opened a desk drawer and touched a white scarf he had taken from Yoruichi's and a bowler hat he had taken from Kazuki's body. He placed the bowler hat on his desk after taking it out. Did it look like this? Yes, Hokage. Sama. Continue. Naruto's memories from when he was 9 to 12 are completely missing. I searched his mind for them but they just aren't there. After he became 12, Yoruichi and Kazuki started to train Naruto to be a soul sage, which is when I saw the demon. I'm sorry, Hokage. Sama, but I couldn't continue to search his memories after that. It's okay, Inoichi. Go home and get some rest. You and Ibiki are excused from duty tomorrow. Before departing the office, Inoichi and Ibiki bowed and said, Thank you, Hokage, Sama. After learning that his son is a demon hunter and that his two deceased teammates may not be as dead as he thought, Minato swiveled his chair and gazed out the window. The following morning, Konoha, though it wasn't mucha, just a simple white room with a 5x5 closet and a tiny bathroom with a sink and a shower. Naruto woke up in his room, which was more private than when he was traveling with Jiraiya. The old pervert is a great friend and could give Naruto a preview of his upcoming book. Naruto actually missed him. Speaking of books, Naruto needed the next one after finishing the one he was reading. He would need to find out the location of the closest bookstore. After removing the orange book, Naruto opened it to reveal the next book's prologue. With the book in hand, Naruto went to the bathroom due to a nosebleed. Naruto was nearly finished with his business 5 minutes later when he heard someone knock on his door. Jumping, Naruto covered his junk. He put on his mask, tucked his precious book into his shirt, and opened the door slowly. A 5 feet 6 inches red-haired kunoichi with 2 bangs that framed her face was standing outside. She held out her hand and said, Hello Naruto, I'm your sister Akane. Naruto just stared at it, and since he didn't have time to wash his hands or want to come across as impolite, he pulled his sister into a one-armed embrace. Akane didn't mind. In fact, she had originally intended to do this, but she decided against it after realizing that her brother was a little awkward around people. Instead, she went for a handshake. To allow her sister to enter, Naruto withdrew and moved out of the doorway. Seated at the foot of his bed, she examined his scroll, which appeared to be a summoning contract similar to Jiraiya's, but it was entirely black and emanated an odd chakra. Did you need something, Oni-san? I just thought that we should get to know each other better. I hardly know anything about you and vice versa. Her soul was all blue, indicating that she had no hatred in it, according to Naruto's scan of her soul with his hollow eyes. In addition to scanning people's souls, Naruto's hollow eyes can read minds, see through most genjutsu, and see through walls. The wizards cautioned Naruto that some of the more advanced genjutsu could deceive his eyes. Although Akane was unable to see her brother's eyes change, she could sense the strange chakra emanating from him. Quickly, Naruto said, Okay, what so you want to know? What is that scroll and why do I feel a weird energy coming from it? Akan's eyes brightened. It is the Soul Reaper's summoning contract. Every living soul sage must sign it. The weird energy you feel from it is my spiritual pressure. We soul sages don't use chakra, and I store just enough pressure in there to be able to change into my Bankai state, or as you may know, sage mode. Why do you read Jiraiya's weird pervert books? Naruto flushed because he hadn't anticipated being asked. How do you know about that? I caught a glimpse of it when I entered the hospital. Don't worry, I think I'm the only one that noticed. Well, I read them because Ewella Uma. Could I skip this question? Sure, Otuto, but can I ask you another question about Jiraiya? Yay. Do you like Jiraiya as a friend, and how long did you travel with him? He is our godfather, you know. Although Naruto was unaware of this, he could now use it to buy Jiraiya off. No, I didn't know that. I traveled with him for about 6 months and I trust him with my life. This surprised Akane because she always believed Jiraiya to be reckless and untrustworthy, but her brother was arguing otherwise. Can I ask you a few questions, Oni-san? Sure, Naruto. Do we have food here or do I have to hunt? We have food here in the kitchen, but the head chef will get mad if anyone but him or Ka-san cooks in the kitchen. His cooking is beyond perfect, but his personality needs to be refined. Can we get some food now? I'm a bit hungry. Sure, Oto, come on, I'll tell. I actually need to use the bathroom real quick. I'll meet you downstairs. She bounded out of his room and down the stairs after saying, okay, Oto. Naruto was using the bathroom when his door was knocked on again, which infuriated him. He identified the voice as his mother's and said, Naruto, open up, I need to speak to you right now. He reapplied his mask and opened the door. His mother was standing outside, fully clothed as if she were going somewhere. Naruto quickly, get combat ready. I forgot that today we have to test your strength in the arena. Okay, Ka-san. Let me use the bathroom first. Naruto, now is not the time to be choking the chicken. Come on, hurry up. Someone knew Naruto's secret, but more shamefully, it was his mother. Naruto flushed a bright red. Why? Yes, Ka-san. With his mask tightened and his scroll in hand, Naruto was prepared. After an hour, Konoha Stadium. While in the locker room, Naruto was unable to dispose of his morning wood, which is why he currently suffers from excruciating blue balls. He was aware that sleeping was the only way to get rid of it, but he couldn't do that at the moment. Naruto would simply have to endure it. Naruto was seated next to a tall, blonde man who looked like him and his father. Hey Naruto, I'm pretty sure that you can tell that we are related. My name is Kenji. Naruto said, hello Kenji. After scanning Kenji with his hollow eyes, he turned them off and held out his now clean right hand. Unaware that his strong shakes were causing Naruto's balls to begin to hurt, Kenji took it and gave it a good shake. When Kenji finally released Naruto, he was unable to see the anguished look on his face. In fact, the mask prevented him from seeing it. Naruto's perspiration fell when he said, well, I would love to talk to you more, but we don't have the time and I need to tell you the rules of the test. First and most importantly, there is absolutely no killing. And that's it for the rules. He made it seem like there would be dozens of rules, but there was only one. And yes, they are elites among elites, just like SEAL Team 6. Next the lineup, first a Genin team, then a Chunin team, then Jonin, and finally Anbu Team 6. Naruto gave a nod. Good, now wait at the tunnel, I'll signal you when to come out. Naruto was crouched near the tunnel entrance. With caution, he ought to have no trouble winning the 4 rounds. Naruto followed Kenji's signal to come out. He noticed that at least 9 out of 10 people from the village were present in the arena. A group of 3 ninjas, all donning the leaf headband, stood across from him. After the team nodded, Kenji turned to face Naruto, who also nodded. He backed up a few paces and shouted, "Start." Naruto began to run, but he stumbled and rubbed against the side of one of his balls, causing him to flinch in agony and drop to one knee. Taking advantage of this, the Genin threw several shuriken and kunai at him, which he barely avoided. Naruto, I truly can't do this at this moment. He only used a small amount of spirit energy in this summoning because he only intended to subdue them, so he bit his thumb and slashed it against a seal on his arm. 3 black kimono clad skeletons emerged from the ground. One carried a long katana around his back, the other a guandao, and the third a staff studded with steel. The Genin recoiled in horror as they all had bright blue eyes. The 3 skeletons turned around and bowed, saying, It will be done, Naruto. Sama. Just subdue them, I don't want them killed. Following their departure, the first genin was attacked by the skeleton brandishing the long katana. When it broke apart at the joints, the genin managed to punch and grinned, but the skeleton reassembled and pinned the genin's arms behind his back. The genin was knocked unconscious by the second skeleton's guandao after it struck him with the blunt side of his blade and then made a full 360-degree turn, barely missing the back of the skeleton's head. Unfortunately, the genin was not aware that the guandao was returning and was lightly lodged in his temple. Instead of even resisting, the final genin immediately gave up. One genin was pinned down, the other was unconscious, and the third had his hands raised in surrender when Kenji returned to the middle of the arena. He turned to face Naruto, who was sustaining himself with his scroll. The crowd erupted in cheers as the boy defeated 3 of Konoha's best genin, and hardly had to move. The winner is Naruto Namikaze. 3 Chunin entered, standing opposite Naruto, and said, "We will proceed to the next round. Enter Shikamaru Nara, Ino Yamanaka, and Choji Akamichi." The first was slender and wore her hair in a spiky ponytail. She was followed by a woman who looked like the man he had imagined. And finally, a man with thick bones and long brown hair. "Start," Kenji shouted. The skeletons of Naruto went underground and abandoned him alone. After regaining his composure, Naruto hurried towards the 3 Chunin. 4 kunai were thrown by the blonde-haired kunoichi, each of which struck Naruto in a different limb before hurling him back into the wall at the far rear of the stadium. When the audience fell silent, the blonde kunoichi flipped her hair and told her 2 teammates, "That was easy." A bow staff sprang from the ground as she was saying that, but Choji's arm stopped it before it could strike her chin. She watched as the skin began to melt from his muscles, followed by the muscles melting from his bones and finally his organs. Regaining his footing, the skeleton reached down and retrieved his guandao. "Troublesome," was the sigh that the person with the name Shikamaru whispered. "All right, Shika. Ino. Cho formation." Choji rolled in the direction of the 2 skeletons who were motionless as he transformed into a gigantic ball. Ino waited for Naruto to appear while her hands were raised in her clan's signature jutsu. Ino was prepared to switch bodies, but Shikamaru intervened, forcing Naruto to save the 2 skeletons. Ino looked at him curiously. "Last round there were 3 skeletons, which means that the real Naruto is right behind you." When Ino saw her prey, she swiftly spun around and used her jutsu, causing her body to fall to the ground. When Shikamaru noticed that Naruto's skin began to melt away, his smile vanished. Quickly reacting, the 2 skeletons' version of Naruto moved behind Choji and punched him in the back of the neck, knocking him unconscious. After that, Naruto rushed at Shikamaru but was paralyzed. However, his skin melted away once more. Naruto was behind Shikamaru with a kunai to his throat when he made a hasty attempt to pull back his shadow. "I see you transformed yourself to look like a skeleton. Ingenious. I surrender." Kenji turned his attention from the Chunin group to the real Naruto, but was taken aback when the latter's skin melted away as well. The real Naruto was lying on the ground, attempting to ignore the pain in his groin. The crowd cheered even louder when he defeated the best Ino. Shika. Cho trio without even moving, as he had done in the previous round. Winner Naruto Namikaze. Shikamaru and Chunin were both unconscious when a squad of medic ninja arrived to pick them up. Naruto was about to cry because the pain was so unbearable. He had never experienced blue balls for this long, and it seemed to get worse with each passing second. "Alright," he thought, halfway through. "Hurry up, Naruto." Enter Hitaki Kakashi, Anko Matarashi, and Mighty Guy. A man wearing a headband over his right eye and a mask over his face entered the room while reading a small orange book. Beside him was a very attractive woman wearing a fishnet shirt, very short shorts, and a tan trench coat. Beside her was a man wearing green with a sharp bowl cut and eyebrows. Start. Anko discovered Naruto's weakness, his blue balsa, while closely examining him. Anko intended to take advantage of this. When Naruto noticed the sparkle in Anko's eyes, he opened his hollow eyes and became extremely terrified. After glancing at Naruto, the 3 skeletons said, "Pardon us, Naruto." "Sama, but our time here is up. Just get me close to him, boys. I'll take care of the rest." "Thank you for your help," Naruto said, glancing at the skeletons after hurling a mental curse. "Next time I summon you, I promise that you will have all the sake you can drink." The skeletons gave a nod and vanished into the smoke. Using his sword and trying his best to ignore the pain was Naruto's only option. When Naruto extended his right hand, his Zanpakuto appeared in it. After exerting as much spirit pressure as he could, Naruto launched his assault. The group's female member, who posed the greatest threat, came first. Naruto struck her arm with the blunt side of his sword after using a full power flash step. Anko flew ragdoll style to the other side of the arena after feeling her arm bone shudder under the impact. Flash moved aside before Kakashi's electric punch struck him after he sensed chakra charging behind him. Despite being ensnared in a genjutsu, Naruto grabbed Kakashi and struck him on the side of the head, knocking him unconscious, using his hollow eyes. When Guy realized what was going on, Kakashi gave him the ideal diversion to unlock his sixth gate. Guy chose to use the Morning Peacock, one of his earliest techniques, to strike Naruto. Naruto was hit by thousands of fireballs. To counter the guy's attack, Naruto had to use the Getsuga Tensho. When Naruto yelled, "Getsuga Tensho," and swung his sword over his head, a surge of blue energy struck the approaching fireballs and put them out. With a loud thud, Guy fell from the sky, immobile. Still sporting his stunned expression, Kenji made his way to the middle of the arena and declared, "Winner Naruto Namekaze." The noise level of the crowd nearly caused Naruto's eardrums to pop. All of the ninja who were watching the match were struck by the amount of power he displayed. Minato looked back in disbelief as Jiraiya placed his hand on his shoulder and remarked, "That's not even half of his power." A certain Hyuga was frantically blushing at the figure in the arena as Akane surrounded the rookie nine and yelled, "That's my little brother." When the agony finally caught up with Naruto, it was unbearable. He blacked out after vomiting and falling on one knee. After gathering the four ninja in the arena, the medic ninja departed. Hospital arena. A bright white light greeted Naruto as he awoke. He was sitting when he felt something in his arm and squeezed it. He received a squeeze back that caused him to leap to his feet. His mother and sister were seated on a bench near his bed when he turned to his left. He held his mother's hand. "Ka-san, Oni-san, what are you doing here? Wait, where am I?" "You're in the arena hospital. You fainted and the medic ninja brought you here." "I see. Does that mean that I automatically lose the final round?" "No, the medic ninja said that you passed out from pain so they didn't have to operate on you, and you were supposed to have a 2-hour break after your fight with the Jonin. But if you didn't wake up in those 2 hours then you would be disqualified." "Good. How long have I been out?" "About an hour, so you have an hour to laze around." After giving a nod, Naruto rose from his bed. "There's a bathroom down the hall. It's only a one-person bathroom with lockable doors." Naruto nodded. Ordinarily he would be ashamed, but the blue ball pain was still vivid in his mind, and he would stop at nothing to avoid experiencing it ever again. Akane handed Naruto a small orange book and said, "And the doctor took this from your shirt, Oto-Oto." After seeing the book's title, Kushina went in search of Jiraiya, the elderly pervert. After feeling relieved, Naruto cleaned his hands and went out of the restroom, where his older sister was waiting for him. "Ka-san said to follow you and make sure you don't do anything too stressful before your final fight." Naruto saw through her like a window and said, "You don't have to lie." Akane put on her fake hurt expression and said, "Fine, I just want to be with my Oto-Oto, is there something wrong with that?" Naruto felt a little guilty despite knowing what she was attempting to do. "Fine, you can accompany me, just don't question what I do." After giving a nod, Akane followed her brother down the hallway. The first nurse he saw pointed down the hallway when he asked where he could find Ino Yamanaka. Naruto proceeded to the final chamber at the end of the corridor and unlocked the door. When he noticed that several medic ninja were attempting to use their chakra to restore Ino's sanity, her father, who was seated on the bench beside her, shot Naruto a lethal glance. They hoped that this child knew something they didn't because they were failing at their task, so Naruto approached Ino and ordered the medic ninja to move. A dazzling blue light flashed after Naruto placed his palm on her forehead, and when he raised his hand, the kanji for forget appeared on her forehead. For a moment, it vanished, and then the kanji for memory reappeared. Ino awoke with a start after Naruto took the kanji. She inquired, "What happened?" Yoruichi rushed up to embrace his bewildered daughter as Naruto exited the room after saying, "You lost." After asking the same nurse where he could find Ino, Naruto now asked her where he could find Enko Madarashi. The room 2 doors down was indicated by the nurse. 2 white snakes swung at him as he stepped inside, but he stepped aside, causing them to fall to the side without harm. Naruto noticed Anko standing on her bed, one arm bloody and broken, the other holding a kunai. Anko kept the nurses at a distance from her. "So you came back to claim my head, did you?" Instead of saying anything, Naruto approached her and took her broken arm in his. "What are you doing? Draw your sword." Once more, Naruto remained silent and instead began to heal the muscle and bone in her arm by directing his spiritual energy there. Anko groaned. Initially, it hurt, but then, as if someone were massaging her, it began to feel wonderful. Anko was shocked when Naruto finished and embraced her, saying, "I'm sorry about what your sensei did to you, but please don't be mad at all men." She usually gets angry around men, but when she was with Naruto, she felt nothing at all and started crying into his shoulder. Following the abuse she received at the hands of her sensei, Anko suppressed her emotions for years, but now she let them all out. Pulling away, she opened her window and said, "Thank you, Naruto." She then leapt out and headed to her favorite dango shop. After that, Naruto went to the Green Beast's chamber. He noticed a tiny replica of himself sitting next to the original inside. The little beast approached Naruto as soon as he entered and gave him a quick inspection. "Yash, my new goal is to get stronger than you someday so we can be eternal rivals." "Lee, how can you expect to be his rival when you haven't even mastered the morning peacock yet? You need more training." Lee was writing in a notebook, motivation tears streaming down his cheeks. "Yes, Guy Sensei." "Lee. Guy. Lee." They hugged each other and watched a sunset that was just right. In an attempt to finish this, Naruto touched the guy's arm, partially repairing his chakra system. Without another look, Naruto turned and walked out of the room. The room he was most anticipating, Kakashi's, came next. He found Kakashi sitting upright on his bed, reading Icha Icha Paradise, in his room across from the guy's. When Naruto entered, he said, "Oh hey," in a voice that was not particularly excited. Kakashi's visible eye nearly popped out of his sockets when Naruto showed him the 13th limited edition book in the Icha Icha series. The only limited edition book that Kakashi didn't have was How. Akane, standing beside Naruto, felt her perspiration fall. "Let me rent your Icha Icha series books and I'll give you this book, and I'll even have Jiraiya send you all of his new books 1 week before their release date." With a forceful nod, Kakashi handed Naruto the key to his safe, which contained all of his valuable books. Naruto gave Kakashi his book and his word in exchange. Naruto went to each person's room after leaving Kakashi's, healing and assisting them to the best of his ability. Akane nearly choked on her saliva as she glanced at the clock. Before she could finish, Naruto grabbed her arm and stepped to the tunnel entrance, where Kenji was waiting for him. "Oto, the final match starts in a minute, we need to hurry." Kenji glanced at Naruto and the startled, confused Akane before making his way to the middle of the arena. As the crowd roared, "The final match is about to begin." 3 Anbu emerged from the opposite side of Naruto as he made his way to the middle of the arena. The first had short, spiky brown hair and wore a bear mask. The second was a female Anbu with long purple hair and a cat mask. The third had short, cropped black spiky hair and a tiger mask. Kenji shouted, "Start!" and took a step back. No time was wasted by the 3 Anbu. They worked very well together, and the cat Anbu started attacking first by using herself as a distraction. Because of her exceptional sword skills, Naruto was actually forced to use his Zanpakuto, as the ground beneath him collapsed, forcing him to leap into the air. When he looked down, he saw that the tiger masked Anbu had removed his cloak, exposing purple arms. "Anbu, where is the bear?" When Naruto felt a blow to his back, he realized that the bear Anbu was attempting to seize him by using wood style. The 2 other Anbu leapt and forced his trajectory back into the hole as he tried to escape and fall away from it. Wood style. Wood prison jutsu. Anbu yelled and made some hand gestures as Naruto touched down on the bear. Naruto attempted to use his Zanpakuto to cut the wooden cage that grew around him, but it refused to yield. The Anbu wearing the cat mask spoke first after the other 2 gazed down at the cage. "Give up, there is no way that you will get out of there." Naruto wanted to demonstrate his full strength even though he knew that 2 Getsuga Tenshos would destroy the chakra. Enhanced wood. With his right arm extended, he placed his left hand on his right elbow joint and yelled, "Bankia." From the wooden cage, a column of black spirit pressure blasted out of his planet. The blue sky appeared to falter as the clouds surrounding the column were drawn in. Eventually, the black column vanished, and a new Naruto emerged from the wreckage. This Naruto had black pants and an open black kimono, and his sword now resembled a long, black katana. Naruto was rushed by the tiger Anbu, who touched his arm. "It's over," he thought, "because my bugs will drain all of your energy and render your combat useless." This was untrue, though, as the tiny insects that did cling to Naruto perished. Jumping back, the Anbu informed his teammates that his bugs were useless. Waiting for Naruto to attack, the three Anbu formed a combat formation. After whispering, "Getsuga Tensho," and raising his sword, Naruto unleashed a surge of black energy that engulfed the Anbu. Everyone believed they had passed away. Kenji glanced at Naruto, but he never got a response. A huge chasm was created and the arena's south side vanished when the smoke from the enormous energy wave dissipated. The fact that the three Anbu were standing in an undeveloped area, however, startled the crowd the most. "We surrender," was their declaration as they leapt in front of Kenji, knowing that Naruto could have easily killed them. When Naruto sheathed his sword, it vanished, and his clothing transformed back into what he had been wearing. Kenji declared, "Winner Naruto Namikaze," as he made his way to the center of the arena. The audience was in complete awe of Naruto's strength and was unable to speak until a female Hyuga with a red head began to applaud, at which point the entire crowd did the same. The crowd was quieter this time, which Naruto appreciated. After saying, "Naruto Namikaze will be regarded as a Jonin Ora Anbu of Konoha, after a year of service he will become a sage. Do you accept, Naruto?" The Hokage got up and moved to the railing. Naruto gave a nod. When he defeated the Jonin, the crowd cheered even louder, causing his ears to bleed and giving him a burning headache. Naruto caught a leaf headband that Minato threw at him. After fastening the headband around his forehead, Naruto raised his head once more. "Please welcome Naruto to our village." The audience stood up and bowed to their new Anbu or Jonin. Naruto bowed lower than the others in a display of humility. After a long day, Naruto went home from the stadium with the intention of reading the next Icha Icha book and then falling asleep. After Naruto's battle, Konoha Cemetery Knight Kenji was traversing a line of headstones. He paused at one that he had been going to nearly every week for the past 12 months. He said a brief prayer, stepped back, and laid the bouquet of flowers on the grave. "Hey, sorry I missed my usual visit. This week has been a bit hectic. First my little brother finds his way back to Konoha, and then I find out that he is stronger than all ninja in this village. I think you two would have gotten along." Kenji touched the name etched on the stone with his fingers. Ren Jinsho was the title. A few weeks after their mission involving the three Kumo Hunter ninja, Kenji and Ren met up. They spent the next 2 years together before finally confessing their love for one another, which was actually set up by Itachi. Rewind. Kenji was standing beneath an old oak tree in the park, where they usually meet up, when he felt cold steel against his throat while he was leaning against the tree with his hands in his pockets. He turned to see Ren grinning broadly and saying, "Gotcha." The kiss was innocent at first, but Ren wanted more and heated it up. Soon, they were fighting for control, and Ren was straddling Kenji as Kenji smiled and pulled her into a passionate kiss. "Maybe we should go to your place," Kenji said, pulling away. Ren nodded and hurried Kenji to her home. She lived alone because she was an orphan. They proceeded to kiss once they were inside. Ren groaned into it and soon found herself lying on her bed with Kenji on top of her. Kenji then withdrew from the kiss once more. "Ren, I need to tell you something." "Can it wait? I really want this right now." Kenji got off her and sat at the foot of her bed, saying, "No, it can't." Ren groaned and did the same. "What is it?" "Ren, these last 2 years you made me really happy, and It was Ren's hope that he would finally say those 3 words to her. "I think I love you, Ren." Ren threw herself at him, kissing him even more wetly and passionately than they had previously. In his ear, she whispered, "I love you too, Kenji." Ren wanted to make Kenji even happier, even though he was likely the happiest man alive at the time. After giving him another kiss, she began undressing. Kenji would never forget that night. The end of the flashback. It was impossible for Kenji to keep a tear from streaming down his cheek. That snake bastard had to take her away from him, even though they were very happy together. Rewind as they ran through the forest at full speed. Kenji learned that Ren's medic squad had been attacked while they were en route to assist a nearby village. Unaware that the snake sage Orochimaru was the one attacking, the combat ninjas who joined them dispatched a messenger bird to request reinforcement. The battle was over and all of the villagers had left when Kenji arrived at the battlefield. In one of the shacks he assumed was used for operations, he looked for Ren and discovered her. She was already dead when he attempted to rouse her. Her eyes had been taken out of her skull and a hole had been blown through her chest. After leaving the shack and throwing up, Kenji collapsed to his knees and began to sob. Why her? He asked himself repeatedly. Finish the flashback even if it meant losing his life. Kenji vowed to exact revenge on his mate. He turned to see his mother when he felt a hand on his shoulder. Kenji nodded and walked away, saying, I'm sure she wouldn't want you to get a cold for her sake because it's cold out here. Naruto's room in the morning. After waking up, Naruto proceeded with his morning ritual, which included reading several chapters of his Icha Icha book, using the bathroom, taking a shower, and getting dressed. As Naruto descended the stairs, he noticed his sister Akane conversing with a huge man who had unfathomably large muscles. The enormous figure nodded and said, Good morning, Kuro-san. Could you please make me an omelet and some ramen? Kuro's name means ninth son, and he was indeed the ninth child in his family. All of them went on to become master chiefs with a variety of specialties, in Kuro's case, nearly 6. Sushi, bento, eggs, ramen, dumplings, and the majority of fish dishes. After giving Naruto a quick glance, Akane inquired about his desires. He didn't know of any food other than whatever herbs or animals were found in the forest, so Naruto just looked at her and said, Deer meat. Akane gave him a perplexed look. Okay, do you want that pan-fried, roasted egg? It was Naruto's turn to appear perplexed, but he simply stared at her since his mask prevented them from seeing it. Then it hit Akane like a ton of bricks. Her brother would ask her if he had to hunt because he never ate in a village, not even when he was traveling with Jiraiya. Uto, you never ate in a village, did you? No, I haven't. Then I will make you what every namikaze is addicted to, my special ramen. The cook said with a sparkle in his eye. Naruto simply nodded, but Akane appeared excited. Kuro-san, you're really going to make it, for Naruto. Sama here I will. Scowling, Akane said, just for Naruto, of course not, I will make some for everyone. Akane and Naruto took a seat at the table and bided their time until their meal was ready. Kuro returned about 15 minutes later carrying 2 bowls of ramen. He set one in front of Naruto and one in front of Akane, who immediately dove in. Kuro gazed intently at Naruto as Akane stopped eating. With his spoon in hand, Naruto sampled some of the ramen, froze, then dipped it again with a little more ramen and took another bite. Perhaps he dislikes ramen, Akane thought. Kuro grinned when he saw Naruto freeze and take more ramen in his second bite, which is a common behavior for people with more social standing or good manners when they enjoy something. Naruto would receive seconds, but it was believed that he should never eat since he had no idea when his next battle would take place and a full stomach would be detrimental. Despite this, Akane persisted, and Naruto nodded when she said, Tadot-san wants your decision before nightfall, so you should think about it. And I'm off today, so I'll show you around the village. Maybe it'll help you decide. Streets in Konoha. Naruto read his book and hardly paid attention as Akane led him past parks, landmarks, and other important locations. Naruto ran into a little figure while they were traveling to what Akane said was the second best ramen stand in the world. As the smaller figure fell to the ground, Naruto, who possesses the constitution of an iron wall, remained upright. She had gorgeous pearl-colored eyes, long dark blue hair, high cheekbones, pink puffy lips, and incredible long eyelashes that made her eyes appear larger than they actually were. Naruto thought he was looking into someone's eyes when he looked down. When Naruto looked at her, he noticed that she had the big, strong thighs he liked in girls, and that her pants were very tight on her despite her wearing a very baggy hoodie. When the female figure realized who she had bumped into, she flushed. Naruto extended his hand and assisted her in standing up. The contact and her proximity to the man caused her to flush even more. Am very sorry, I wasn't paying attention, she said. Naruto nodded. No, it was my fault. I was reading my book when I should have been watching where I was going. Oh, okay, aren't you Akane's bee? Brother? Yes, I am. W. Well, I should go. She turned to go, but Naruto's gentle shoulder touch stopped her. Wait, can I know your name? She then left after saying, oh, how rude of M.Me. My name is Hinata H. Hyuga. Watching the young love develop before her, Akane leapt to the roof. After jumping to her feet, she made fun of her brother by saying, looks like you're in love with Hinata. You know her? Yay, she is my best friend. Kami knows that she needs someone to help her forget about her family. After keeping that in mind, Naruto kept following Akane. The sun was setting soon, and he had to make a decision, but he was unable to focus because Hinata kept popping into his mind. She thought Naruto was hot, for crying out loud. Naruto made up his mind when they got to the Hokage Tower, and they entered their father's office, where he welcomed them. Hello Naruto and Akane, he said, his gaze on Naruto, so have you made up your mind? The statement, I want to be Anbu, was nodded by Naruto. Okay, I'll tell the mask master to make you a new mask. Minato nodded, anticipating this. He was cut off by Naruto, who said, new mask? I can't keep my own. Nodded. Yes, every Anbu has their own customized mask, and yes, if you want to be Anbu you have to wear it while on duty. The room fell awkwardly silent for a minute before Naruto spoke once more. I change my mind. I want to be a Jonin. Are you sure? Naruto gave a nod. Okay, it seems that we are down one Jonin teacher. From today on you will teach Team 10. They're new genin fresh out of the academy, and on top of that you will participate in missions with Jiraiya when he requires it. Naruto nodded, anticipating the second part even though he didn't enjoy the first. Good. Team 10 consists of Hanabi Hyuga, Konohamaru Sarutobi, and Nikuyu Inuzaku. You will meet them at 9 a.m. tomorrow. After giving his trademark nod, Naruto walked away. At 9:30 a.m. the following morning Naruto couldn't get rid of the feeling that he was forgetting something as he went about his morning routine. After fastening his mask and strapping on his scroll, he descended the stairs. He noticed his mother seated on a couch. Morning Ka-san. After turning around, Kushina remarked, you ought to be at the academy. With wide eyes, Naruto burst through the window, shattered it, and headed for the academy. When he arrived, he asked the receptionist where he could locate Team 10, and she directed him down the corridor. A log descended in an arch to the middle of his chest as he opened the door. It appears that Naruto is the group's prankster because when he raised his palm, the log stopped and broke into 1,000 pieces. Naruto glanced at the three nearly genin. The first one looked like Hinata, with the same hair color and eyes, but with a stern look. A girl with a small blue and white wolf pup on her head came next, and a man with long brown spiky hair, black pants, and a blue scarf came last. I see. He believed that two had a Keki Genkai. A child who could tame wolves was born once in a generation, and everyone was aware of the Hyuga's eyes. Normally, the Inuzaku clan could only train dogs. He asked, you are Hinata's relative? After glancing at the Hyuga. Yes, she said, nodding, she is my older sister. Win big. Roof, now. When the three eventually emerged, Naruto was waiting on the roof, reading his book. Naruto replied, why don't we get to know each other? I'll go first. My name is Naruto Namikaze. I like a lot of things, and I also dislike a lot of things. My dream? Well, I don't have one. That didn't tell us anything, yelled Hanabi and Konohamaru together as they leapt to their feet. Naruto read their minds and said, okay, if you think that you can do better then you will be the first to start. Konohamaru. Hanabi liked Konohamaru, and Konohamaru liked Hanabi. But Hanabi thought it would be better to wait until Konohamaru asked, and Konohamaru thought Hanabi would say no. Fine. My name is Konohamaru Sarutobi. I like my grandfather, bento boxes, and girls. I dislike cigarettes and vegetables. My dream is to become the Hokage. Well, that's some dream. There is no shortcut to it and you will have to put in a lot of effort. Ebisu would constantly tell Konohamaru that he had the shortcut to becoming Hokage. He knew this was untrue, but no one would disagree. However, it sounded as though his new sensei was knowledgeable. Naruto was aware that Konohamaru's respected him. Then he gestured toward Hanabi. My name is Hanabi Hyuga. I like cinnamon rolls, and my sister. I dislike people that make fun of weaker people, and my dream is to relieve the branch family of the curse mark. Hanabi liked the way her new sensei spoke to her. Rather than speaking like their superior, he spoke like a family member. I see you stern like your father, but your intentions are pure like your sister's. She also respected Naruto. She nodded as Naruto gestured to the final person in his group. My name is Nikuyu Inuzaku. I like dogs, wolves, bones, and my wolf, Fang. I dislike people who hurt any kind of animal. My dream is to raise a pack of wolves and make the Inuzaku clan well known. Nikuyu rarely trusted people after their first encounter, but her sensei exuded an aura that said, you can rely on me. Well, then I will act as your catalyst and make you stronger so you can achieve your goals. Naruto gained her confidence. 2 genin left, leaving Naruto and Hanabi alone. Naruto asked Hanabi why she hadn't left, and she replied, I have to wait for 2 guards to pick me up. You like my sister, don't you? If so, I think we know each other well enough. Meet me tomorrow at 12 p.m. I have a test prepared for you. Yes, I do. She likes cinnamon rolls and is really clingy. Also try and avoid talking about family. Thank you for the information, Hanabi. The Hyuga elders were unaware that Hinata was one of the strongest Hyugas alive, only surpassed by her cousin Neji, who was also assisted by her. Hanabi nodded, hoping that her sensei would help her get over her depression. Hinata always put the needs of others before her own, even going so far as to allow Hanabi to win their matches so that she was perceived as weak and not Hanabi. After the guards eventually arrived and escorted Hanabi back to the Hyuga estate, Naruto went to search the neighborhood for pastry shops. Streets in Konoha. He turned a corner and saw his angle standing in front of a store. He approached her, but a strange feeling went through his body and his heart began to race. Naruto was still searching for a good place that sold cinnamon rolls. He had never tried to impress any girls before, so he decided to find something she liked, make friends with her, and then try to make her his girl. In stark contrast to his typically icy and expressionless voice, he asked in a shaky tone. The man Hinata liked was there, and she turned to say, N. Naruto.kun. I was just going to get some circa cinnamon rolls, but I left my money at home. After giving it some thought, Naruto said, why don't we get back in line, I'll pay for you. He asked himself if it was courteous to pay for someone. N.No. I couldn't let Y.U do that. N. Naruto.kun. After making sure he didn't offend Hinata by activating his hollow eyes, Naruto said, I insist, Hinata. He took her hand gently and escorted her back to the line, explaining that, I get paid good money for teaching genin and cinnamon rolls aren't that expensive. When Naruto received 24 large rolls, they started eating right away. Since he wasn't hungry and enjoyed watching Hinata eat, he let her eat the majority of them. Thank you, Naruto.kun. After simply nodding, Naruto inquired, are you engaged in any other activities today? Uma N.No. I don't think so. How about we walk together? I don't really know this village too well and you've lived here all your life. After blushing, Hinata said, sure, Naruto. Spend the rest of the day with Naruto.kun. The remainder of the day was spent walking together, enjoying each other's company, with Naruto occasionally flirting with Hinata and making her blush in a cute way. When Hinata finally worked up the nerve to hold Naruto's hand, they intertwined their fingers, and Naruto removed his mask and put it on the back of his collar. When Hinata saw what Naruto's face looked like, she passed out. Hinata woke up in the middle of the night, lying on the grass with her head in Naruto's lap. She fought the urge to pass out and barely made it to her feet before sitting down beside Naruto. Hinata, I know what some of what your family has done to you. Naruto.kun. I don't feel comfortable talking about them. He took her hand in his and kissed her finger, causing her to flush red. I know, Hinata. But trust in me. I won't tell anyone, and if you keep it all bottled up then you could hurt the ones around you. Please, Hinata. Okay, fine. But you have to promise that you won't tell anyone, including Akane or the Hokage. Naruto gave a nod. My family denigrated me and even attempted my murder during our training to make it appear like a simple error because they believe I'm weak and unsuited to be the next Hyuga head. Hinata gripped her chest as a tear ran down her cheek, and Naruto wiped it away and put both of her hands in his. After that, it got a lot worse. They tried to banish me from the clan, and if it wasn't for the branch family then I wouldn't be a Hyuga anymore, Hinata said, smiling at him. If it weren't for my father, I wouldn't be alive right now. They put me down on a regular basis and even took and destroyed everything my mother gave me. I was only 10 years old when they frequently attacked me in public while I was moving through the hallways and attempted to contaminate everything I ate with poison. The fact that it was the same mana my grandfather from my dad's side was even worse, but nothing could be done about it. However, it kind of subsided after I turned 13, and I still experience abuse, but it's much less than it was before. Since he had already pried far enough into Hinata's past without her consent, Naruto wanted to hear it directly from her lips rather than through his hollow eyes when he sensed something she wasn't telling him. "Hinata, there is something you're not telling me," Naruto said. "No, Naruto-kun," she said with a smile, "that's all I have to tell you." Naruto realized something was wrong now and said, "Hinata, please tell me." "That's it, Naruto." "No, it isn't." "Yes, it is." "Hinata. Naruto-kun, that's all. Hinata, please." "I can't. You can trust me, I know, but Hinata, you could hurt Hanabi if you don't. Naruto-kun, please stop." "I can't until you tell me." Hinata, I know it hurts." "You mind will be corrupted by hate. He tried to rape me," Hinata yelled. With a shocked expression, Naruto said, "You probably think I am some cheap slut now." Hinata was taken aback when Naruto leaned down and gave her a full kiss on the lips, as she had assumed he would view her as a filthy whore. "Hinata. I would never think of you like that. From the yesterday I couldn't stop thinking about you," Hinata said. "I pursued you because of who you were, not because of how you looked. At first, I didn't understand it completely, and I still don't, but I believe I mighta." When Hinata regained her senses and kissed him, Naruto was initially taken aback because the shy girl was no longer there and a more self-assured Hinata had taken her place. He opened his mouth, and Hinata's tongue shot into his mouth to explore, and he returned the favor by putting his tongue into hers, but much more gently. "Fine, I'll let you be dominant this time," Naruto thought, putting Naruto down and climbing on top of him, straddling him with her hips and chest on his. They kissed again, and this time, Naruto found it extremely difficult not to pop a boner, but Hinata felt less ashamed and was grinding against this pelvic area almost as if she was trying to stimulate a hard-on. The body behind said, "Let me try." The smaller figure stepped back and the larger figure stepped forward. The figure placed her hand on Hinata's shoulder, and Hinata nearly leapt out of her skin. Naruto asked what was wrong, then turned to see his mother and sister standing 4 feet away, staring at them and making out. At first, they didn't hear the voice, but then the disembodied voice spoke louder, but again, it was ignored. Naruto yelled, "Ka-san, ne-san, I can explain. Please forgive me, Kushina. Sama, Akane-san. What are you apologizing for? I think you're the second person to make my son smile since he got here," Kushina said after giving Hinata a quick glance. Akane looked at her best friend and grinned, then said, "You may have lost your shyness, but you're still the same kind Hinata you were before." It was true. The only other time he had smiled was when he was reunited with his family. Hinata bowed her head low and begged Akane's for forgiveness. Kushina said, "Naruto. Dinner is ready back home. Make sure you say goodbye to Hinata and then hurry back, okay?" "That's good to know, and of course you can have Naruto. You two were made for each other." Akane hugged her best friend and moved to stand by her mother's side. Akane and Kushina left Hinata and Naruto alone after Naruto nodded. "Naruto-kun, I should get going, it's getting late. Hinata, would you like to be my girlfriend?" Naruto whispered as he walked back to her and hugged her. "Of course, Naruto-kun." Naruto couldn't help but look back at Hinata as they parted ways. Their lips locked. He didn't want her to return to that mansion, but there was nothing he could do about it at the moment. 1 p.m. on the training ground. Naruto was idly strolling down the gravel road to the canter of Training Ground 7, but he couldn't focus on anything else, including the time, because all he could think about was Hinata. He knew that his genin team would be waiting for him here, but he was an hour late. A kunai was thrown at him as he saw his team, and he caught it with his finger before throwing it back at a slight angle to avoid hurting anyone. He saw Nikuyu brushing her wolf fur. Konohamaru staring at the kunai inches from his face. A man in all black sitting on a giant dog, and Hanabi speaking to her sister. "Hinata, what are you doing here?" She didn't flinch, but she did blush, much to Naruto's delight. "Oh, Naruto, you are Hanabi's sensei." Naruto approached her and kissed her for a moment. "Yay," he said, turning to face the man with the enormous dog. "I assume you're Nikuyusa's brother?" Wait a minute, you're the one from the training ground the other day, right? The man grinned and said, damn straight I am. I just wanted to see the man that my sister spoke so highly of. According to what they heard, that man was the strongest man in this village, but the three genin looked interested and were not permitted to watch what happened because Konoha law stipulates that you must have completed at least one B rank mission or be 13 years old. Nodding, Naruto remarked, yes, that was me. Hinata and Kiba smiled at the genin's faces, and then Hinata broke the silence by asking, are you going to give them the test today? The genin were looking shocked because the strongest man in the village was going to teach them how to be ninja. Naruto nodded, and Kiba then said, is it okay if we observe? No, I don't, the genin said, nodding and leaving the three older ninja alone. You three, stretch and get ready, the test is about to begin. However, don't divulge the test. Passing trick to them either. Kiba and Hinata sat a safe distance away from the test location after nodding. Do you believe they will pass? Kiba said to Hinata. Hanabi and Nikuyu were both intelligent, but would they be able to see past the goal and themselves? Hinata considered this. With assurance in her voice, Hinata answered, yes, I think they will. Hanabi and Nikuyu are both strong and intelligent, but that might work against them. Despite being the strongest members of their genin class at the moment and possessing a Keki Genkei, they have developed a superiority complex as a result. Konohamaru, on the other hand, was the worst and knows that they don't have a chance against me individually. I'm hoping that he can be the glue in the group, Naruto said, putting his arms around Hinata's waist and resting his head on her shoulder. Please go easy on them, she said, placing her hand on his cheek. As all good things must come to an end, Hinata nodded her understanding and leaned against Naruto to force them into a laying position. You know I can't, this is a test to see if they are mature enough to see past their own well-being and take one for the team. As Naruto wanted his girlfriend in his arm, Hinata turned around and buried her face in his chest, but she was almost asleep in her boyfriend's chest when he abruptly had to move from under her. I'm sorry Hinata, but I have to start. Ahead of Team 10, Naruto said, okay, since we are all ready, let's get you familiarized with the rules, and then he pulled out two bells and showed them to the genin before materializing his sword and tying the bells around the hilt. Your objective is to get the bells from me. I'm sure you have noticed that there are only two bells, he said, as Hinata stood up and climbed a tree to gain a better view of the battle. Kiba trailed her and sat on a nearby tree. Because one of you will fail and return to the academy, that is. Konohamaru shouted, that's not fair, you can't do that, when he said that. On the contrary, yes I can, I already have the Hokage's permission. Come on guys, do you really think you can take on one of the strongest ninja in the village? The lone boy said, turning around to see what the two females in the group were thinking. They both looked at each other, knowing that Konohamaru was not the thing they needed to worry about. As long as you continue to convince them through Naruto, they will eventually pay attention to him, good Konohamaru. Alright, now that you know the goal, let's get started. Naruto threw down two smoke bombs and Flash moved into the trees, followed by Hanabi. Konohamaru dove into the nearby river, and Nikuyu used Gatsuga to clear the smoke and find her prey. She sniffed the ground and discovered his senta. It smelled like ramen, which was advantageous to her because it was recognizable in the Forsta. Then threw her wolf into the air and yelled, dynamic marking. The wolf located Naruto and quickly peed on his leg before returning to Nikuyu. She yelled in Naruto's direction, then she gave Fang a solider pill and he turned into an exact replica of Nikuyu. Then the real Nikuyu screamed Gatsuga. They went straight for Naruto and connected, but they didn't follow through. Instead they found themselves stopped by the side of Naruto's sword. They tried to drill through the sword but they couldn't even make a scratch. They had no choice but to retreat and use their ultimate jutsu that Kiba taught them. Nikuyu gave Fang another pill then screamed, Human-Beast Combination Transformation. Doable. Headed Wolf. A giant cloud of smoke engulfed Nikuyu and Fang. When it cleared, a two-headed, giant wolf revealed itself. Naruto couldn't help but think of someone he met in the Soul Society, but right now he had a bigger problem which was easily resolved. He bit his thumb and slashed it across a seal on his arm and said, Summoning Jutsu. He put a lot so spirit energy into it and slammed his hand to the ground. A smoke cloud of equal size of Nikuyu's appeared. When it cleared, a chimera revealed itself. The head and body was that of a tiger, The back and wings belonged to a dragon whose head sat above the tiger's and the tail was a snake. The two beasts looked at each other. The wolf growled and the tiger did a deep roar. "Yoshi, long time no see." In a deep, irritated voice, the snake said, "Naruto, you still haven't paid your debt for the last time." "Oh, I haven't, sorry, but you see I am a little low on money right now and sake is expensive." The three souls sighed. "Okay, we'll help you again, but you better have a lot of sake the next time you summon us." Naruto's summoning abilities extended beyond skeletons. They could change into anything depicted in the scroll, and there were at least 100 different models. "Sure thing she.ni, but you still can't kill this one, she is my student." "You instruct animals?" the soul asked. "No, she just transformed into an animal." Nikuyu knew that she could only use her wolf Gatsuga 4 times before she would be too exhausted to move, so she was prepared to use her first Gatsuga. They ran to the side to gain speed and started to spin. They literally tuned into a tornado and charged at the chimera that dodged but still got a cut in its leg. "I see." The tiger dashed forward, and the dragon flapped its wings to gain more speed. The two-headed wolf then charged the chimera at full speed, biting the dragon's neck. The snake turned to face the tiger and asked, "What happened, didn't we dodge?" It said, "We did, but we still got cut." The dragon remarked, "Interesting, perhaps we should counter next time." The snake said, "I agree." "Fine. Mold some spiritual pressure in my throat and be ready to release it," the tiger replied. The wolf began to spin once more and ran in the direction of the chimera. The tiger was prepared, but it needed the wolf to approach a bit closer. The tiger roared and let go of the spiritual pressure it had accumulated, and a surge of energy sent the wolf back into the forest, 100 yards away, making it impossible for Naruto and the chimera to see Nikuyu. After waiting for approximately 5 minutes, a blue and white tornado charged at the chimera, who roared, but when it connected, the wolf vanished into a cloud of smoke. A shadow clone thought of Naruto, and then a tornado suddenly appeared out of the forest behind him, who was prepared for it and only offered assistance. The wolf connected, but Naruto didn't even flinch or move. Nikuyu knew that this was the last of her chakra, so she put everything into it, but it didn't work, so she had to stop because she was out of chakra. She changed back into her human form and fell to the ground, with Fang landing on top of her. They nodded and changed, looking at Naruto as if they were anticipating something. "Oh, right, which weapons do you want?" Naruto approached the chimera, placed his hand on its wound, and then used spirit energy to heal it. He then moved to the front of the chimera and said, "Transform into skeletons and hide yourselves into the ground." In response, they said, "Scythe, long bow, and katana." With a nod, Naruto called forth the weapons. The skeletons accepted them and vanished into the earth. As Naruto sat on the ground, waiting for his next pupilla who would probably be Hanabiya, he noticed Konohamaru emerge from the river and carry Nikuyusa's body into the forest behind him. When Nikuyu stirred and Konohamaru gave her a gentle slap on the cheek to try to wake her up, she abruptly punched him in the nose. "Konohamaru, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to, it happened and I thought that I was still in the fight," she said after Konohamaru took a solider pill from his pouch, put it in her mouth, and massaged her neck until she swallowed. He turned up with a nosebleed and said, "Don't worry about it, Nikuyu, mistakes happen. So you want to try working together now?" Nikuyu nodded and turned away, knowing that she would not have been humiliatingly defeated in that way if she had listened to Konohamaru rather than believing she was strong enough to get a bell on her own. Konohamaru read her expression and attempted to reassure her, saying, "Hey, don't worry about it, I wouldn't have listened to myself either if I was nearly as strong as you and Hanabi." Because he was weak, she ignored him and scowled even more, and she essentially got kicked for it. Hanabi, who was sitting in a tree and watching Naruto, saw so many openings that she couldn't even count them, but she knew better than to underestimate her sensei, so she approached him silently from behind. Since the hilt of his sword was out of his line of sight, all she had to do was untie one and hide for the remainder of the time. She was directly in front of the sword when she reached down and touched a bell, but a katana emerged from the ground, nearly taking her arm. She jumped back, and 3 skeletons appeared, all dressed in black kimonos. One had a longbow but no arrows, another had the katana that nearly took her arm, and the final one had a scythe with half of the blade serrated. Naruto remained motionless, meditating, and didn't like being disturbed because he would lose his train of thought. Hanabi dropped into the Juken stance, but she didn't see how it would work against an opponent who didn't have any chakra points of any vitals. She activated her Byakugan and saw that the chakra points were in the skeleton's bones. With her palm facing forward, she rushed at the skeletons and began to strike at the bone, causing them to fall apart. Hanabi was about to strike Naruto on the back of his neck when she noticed that the skeletons were reassembling. She couldn't explain why, but it was happening. The skeleton with the bow fired 2 blue arrows at Hanabi, striking her in the chest, sending her flying back and hitting a tree, forcing her to flee into the forest. As they watched the entire altercation with Nikuyu, Konohamaru decided it was time to recruit her as well, so they pursued her and landed in front of her. The girls exchanged glances before Hanabi turned to face her and said, "Hanabi, we need to work together to even have a chance of getting a bell from Naruto." "Sensei." Knowing this, Hanabi intended to apologize to both Konohamaru and Nikuyu, saying, "I'm sorry Konohamaru, if I listened to you then we would have been able to end this earlier." "Hey, no problem, but right now we are running out of time and I have a plan." They were given information by Konohamaru, but their plan still had a flaw. They were unsure of who would be held accountable. After finishing his meditation, Naruto got up, looked at the tree skeletons nearby, and brushed them off. He then stretched his muscles, grabbed his sword, and used his hollow eyes to look for his students, who were not far away and were encroaching on his position. They were probably going to attack again, but this time as a team. It appears they pass, but he still wanted to have a little more fun with them. While using her Byakugan to watch the battle, Hinata noticed that Naruto's eyes had changed. She wasn't sure if he had sage powers or some sort of ocular Keki Genkai, but she was going to ask him. Nikuyu was the first to rush at Naruto, who was dodging and blocking all her attacks with ease. Then Hanabi came out from the other side of the forest and he was being attacked from both sides and he couldn't block Hanabi's attacks because she would paralyze him. He knew that they were trying to loosen the strings on the bells so that Konohamaru could do something, but he wasn't sure what. Naruto let the strings get loose, which was when Hanabi let a Juken strike hit the ground, which caused a bomb to go off underneath them in dirt to obscure Naruto's vision. Naruto jumped back and noticed that the bells were gone. On the other side of the dust, Konohamaru was holding both bells and Nikuyu and Hanabi were on either side of him looking at the bells. Konohamaru made a decision and, at the same time, put one bell into Hanabi's pocket and the other into Nikuyu's. They were about to pull them out and give it back to him, but they stopped when they heard Naruto's voice. "Good job Nikuyu and Hanabi." They turned and saw the dust had cleared. "Sensei, if Konohamaru goes back to the academy then I'll go with him," replied Hanabi. Nikuyu remarked, "Same with me sensei." Seeing what transpired while the dust was in the air, Naruto grinned beneath his mask and said, "Well, in that case, I guess that I will have to let all of you pass then." Looking at his sensei in shock, Konohamaru said, "Really, Naruto? Sensei?" Naruto gave a nod and said, "Meet me here tomorrow at 2 a.m. sharp. We will train and I think you are ready to take your first mission." The 3 genin appeared excited because they were about to establish themselves as formidable ninjas and establish a reputation. "Naruto, I'm going to take Hanabi out to dinner. Would you and Konohamaru like to join us?" Hinata congratulated Hanabi on passing the exams, Kiba congratulated Nikuyu, and Naruto praised Konohamaru. Naruto knew that Konohamaru had lost his father and grandfather, so he made it his mission to be the family that Konohamaru was missing. After Konohamaru nodded, Naruto turned back to Hinata and remarked, "We would love to." While walking behind Konohamaru and Hanabi, Naruto and Hinata held hands. Naruto noticed that Hanabi was staring at Konohamaru, and Konohamaru was doing the same. He whispered his observations into Hinata's ear, and she said she noticed too. When they arrived at the restaurant, Naruto sat next to Hinata, forcing Konohamaru to sit next to Hanabi. Hinata giggled at the way the 2 young people were acting together, so he ordered something called the Bull's Loving, which was fried buffalo meat dipped in honey, with garlic fries, and a salad with a lot of avocado and bananas. Honey, garlic, and avocado are all aphrodisiacs. When Naruto and Hinata said goodbye, he couldn't help but make the kiss sloppy and hot. Hinata pulled away and looked toward the children, but Naruto got the message and let go. Read ahead at your own risk. Warning, lemon ahead. When they arrived at the park, Naruto kissed Hinata in the same manner as he had done at the restaurant, but this time they didn't stop. He didn't care that he was getting hard, and Hinata didn't care that she was wetting her underwear. They both moaned into their kiss, and when Naruto's hand entered her tight cavity and went into her pants, she had to pull away from the kiss and bite Naruto's shoulder to prevent herself from groaning too loudly. With nowhere to put her mouth, Naruto began to suck on Hinata's neck, resulting in a bruise. She whispered in his ear, "Let's get a room." Naruto placed Hinata on his back and stepped to the closest motel, where they continued from where they left off. Using every technique outlined in Jiraiya's books, Naruto placed Hinata on the bed and got between her legs to lick her. Hinata returned the favor at least 4 times before she viciously tore off his pants and put as much of him as she could in her mouth. Naruto groaned. It was his first time and he arrived quickly, but it wasn't enough to satisfy him. He picked her up and put her over his member, but Hinata stopped him. "What's wrong?" Naruto inquired. "Protection," Hinata answered. After setting Hinata down and picking up his pants from the floor, Naruto grabbed the condom, but Hinata grabbed it from him. He thought he was going to come again at the contact, but Hinata took his hand and leaned back, forcing him to lie on top of her. When he finally reached full speed and wasn't slowing down, Hinata moaned and felt like she was about to come again, but this time it was much stronger, and she was unable to speak, so all she could do was squirm beneath Naruto. Naruto didn't come, but he wasn't about to use Hinata while she was sleeping. He was about to pull out, but Hinata flipped him over and she was on top. "Where do you think you going?" A few minutes after Hinata grinned and began slamming into Naruto's hips, Naruto declared, "Hinata, I'm going to come. Go ahead, come inside me." Knowing that his head would be extremely sensitive after he arrived, Hinata tried to get off him but abruptly slammed down, causing him to writhe beneath her. Thinking it was cute, she repeated the action, this time causing Naruto to writhe even more and placing his arms on Hinata's thighs. "Hinata, I'm spent." With another smile, Hinata said, "I know." With one hand holding Hinata's and the other holding his member, Naruto thought his head was going to fall off after she did it 5 more times. Hinata liked how Naruto writhed beneath her and the pained expression in his eyes, so she leaned down and kissed him before rolling off him and resting her head on his chest. After 3 months sitting on a tree branch, Naruto reads his Icha Icha book while his genin team picks up trash from a lake beneath him. Konohamaru was always complaining that these D-rank missions were just chores, and Nikuyu was complaining that they wouldn't help her get stronger. Hanabi hardly ever spoke, and Naruto didn't seem to care. Hinata began training with Neji every afternoon, which reduced their time together, but Naruto never complained because he understood that she wanted to get stronger to protect her clan and loved ones. Despite this, they continued to do everything they used to do, but they had less time to do it. "Sensei, we're done." When Naruto looked down, he noticed that the lake had changed from being green and repulsive to sparkling and clear an hour earlier. On the lake stood 100 Konohamarus, a Nikuyu, and a Hanabi. 4 days ago, Naruto gave Konohamaru a scroll that explained the Shadow Clone Jutsu. Although Konohamaru learned it in a single day, he hasn't yet perfected it. "Good. I guess we should report back in." He leapt from the tree and strolled slowly in the direction of the Hokage's tower. His advisor should have woken the Hokage, who was sleeping on the couch with his head down, but he was equally lazy and fell asleep instead. Both the lazy genius and the Hokage jumped up when Naruto kicked the desk. According to Naruto, Team 10 reporting in Hokage. Sama. "Right. Well, it seems that you have time for another chore. Mission, so how about catching a cat or painting a shop?" Konohamaru interrupted him. "Come on, old man Hokage, we are the strongest team from our class and we have the strongest ninja in the village with us. Give us a higher rank mission." Minato, who was only 45, snuffed when Konohamaru called him old. "Well, if your sensei thinks you're ready, then I could give you a C rank mission." The 3 genin glanced at Naruto, who evaluated the situation. His father offered him the option. If he declined his student's request for a higher rank mission, he would lose the respect of his genin but would not spend any time with Hinata. If he went, however, his team would gain experience and he would hear less complaints from them, but he would spend less time with Hinata. His conclusion was, "I think they are ready." Nodded. "Okay then, it's a simple mission. You 3 will be an escort to a merchant to Kumo. You should expect light resistance. Bandits, thugs and low-rank Rouge Ninja. But this is an official mission and since you still are a genin team with no real combat experience, I will issue a run on sight if you encounter any enemy that is C rank or higher, do you understand?" The three genin gave a nod, and Naruto realized he would have to deal with those ninja. Good, said Minato. You will meet your client at the main gate at 8 a.m. tomorrow. Get your stuff together and get a good night's sleep. Dismissed. The three genin were ecstatic because this was no village Korea, this was a real mission. They could take on more difficult missions and eventually establish themselves if they could finish this. Although his team needed the experience, Naruto was unconcerned and didn't want to leave the village because he would be leaving Hinata behind. 5:30 p.m. in Konoha Park. When Naruto noticed Hinata approaching him, he stopped reading his book while he was waiting by the old oak tree. After giving her a quick embrace, he asked her what she wanted to do, to which she replied, I just want to sit here with you. Hinata sat between Naruto's legs and rested her head on his chest as he nodded and leaned on the tree. I'm going on a mission tomorrow. I'll be gone for 3 days, Naruto said, breaking the silence. What kind of mission is it? Hinata asked as she stood up. It's a C-rank mission. We are going to escort a merchant to Kumo then come back. The genin have been given a run on sight if they see an enemy that's C rank or higher, but knowing them they would probably stay and fight. Hinata chuckled as she occasionally witnessed Team 10's training sessions and had to acknowledge that, at least to genin, they are a hot-blooded bunch. But anyway, how had your training with Neji been going? I heard that you were able to hold your own against Kurenai. No, I'm still nowhere near a Jonin, but I can hold my own against Neji. Well, that's good to know. While Hinata dozed off and Naruto read his book, they sat quietly and enjoyed each other's company. Hinata was still asleep as night fell, but Naruto chose not to wake her after noticing the contented expression on her face. She never mentioned it to Naruto, but she preferred sleeping in his arm to the Hyuga compound, so she would take advantage of the opportunity whenever she could. It was nighttime when she awoke, and Naruto was reading his pervert book, which he appeared to be really fond of. She was possessive of Naruto, and he was aware of it, so she didn't care that he read them because she would much rather have him read about women than speak to them. Naruto, what time is it? It's 8:30. I would have woken you up but you seemed peaceful. She was pleased that he didn't. I should get back home. It's late and I don't want my father to send a search party for me again. 3 months ago was the last time she was out this late, and they nearly got caught, but fortunately Naruto saw them coming and managed to hide what had happened. Hinata bid Naruto farewell with a kiss, but Naruto insisted on a deeper kiss, which Hinata refused to give and withdrew. Naruto, not today. It was Hinata's time of the month, and sadly for Naruto, he was caught up in her mood swings, so he ignored her and continued. She burst out, Naruto, I'm not your personal slut, so don't think you can get what you want from me whenever you want. I'm leaving. Naruto got to his feet and gently put his hand on her shoulder, saying, Hinata, it's not like that. She shouted, let go of me, and shoved Naruto back into the tree. She stormed home in a rage, only to realize she had gone too far after taking a shower and calming down. After what he had done, Naruto felt terrible and tried to find a way to make it up to her, but he needed to sleep and prepare for the mission tomorrow, so he decided it would be best if she calmed down before they spoke again. 8 a.m. the following day, as Team 10 gathered at the front gate, an elderly man with a wagon loaded with wooden crates and boxes slowly made his way over. The old man nodded as the three genin introduced themselves, saying, You must be the client. I am Naruto Namikaze and this is Team 10. He looked at the three genin, who blushed, and said, It's good to meet you all. My name is Shin, and I see that the Hokage left me in very capable hand. Konohamaru retorted, We are qualified for this mission, even though we aren't that good. Well, I think you are just being modest, young man. Naruto looked into the man's soul and discovered that he was simply very courteous to everyone he encountered. The three genin liked this man. Naruto hoped to make amends with Hinata before departing, but he was disappointed that she did not show up. We should get moving if you still want to make it back to Kumo in 1.5 days, replied Naruto. Of course, and they left, but Naruto didn't realize the elderly man was lagging until they had left the village 10 steps away. Team 10, take the cart. Konohamaru, you go first and switch off every hour. No, that's fine, the elderly man said, shaking his head. After all, it is my cargo, and the contract never stated that you had to carry my weight. Konohamaru asserted, I insist, old man, and anyway, it's good training. Konohamaru nodded and accepted the cart, saying, Well, if you want to, but if you get tired then just tell me and I will take it back. When Hinata awoke at 9 in the morning, She missed Naruto. Naruto would have to wait 3 days to find out that she had forgiven him because Hanabi had neglected to wake her. This wouldn't have happened if she hadn't lost emotional control. She silently cursed herself. The next 2 days passed without incident for Naruto, but for the genin, everything went as planned. They brought Shin to Kumo with relative ease. The only obstacle they faced was bandit attacks, which they managed to defeat with Naruto's assistance. Additionally, before departing, the courteous elderly man gave each of them a generous tip. The real trouble started early on the 3rd day. Naruto had to use a Getsuga Tensho to kill a giant snake while they were strolling leisurely along the gravel trail. Everything the snake landed on was crushed when its head fell off and the rest of its body went limp. When a man with long dark hair and pale white skin came out, the genin puked from the murderous intent he exuded. Unfazed, Naruto sent the snake sage reeling back, returning the intent tenfold. Naruto was aware that there was a good chance the genin would be killed if he and the snake sage got into a fight right now. A white-haired man in purple pants and a shirt was holding a kunai to his students' necks when he turned around. The snake grinned and said, "Unless you want to return your students to Konoha headless, I suggest that you get on your knees and hold your hands in the air." Naruto followed instructions. In the ninja world, people who disobeyed orders were considered scum, but those who allowed their teammates to perish when they had the ability to revive them were even worse. Regardless of the consequences, Naruto vowed to always return to Konoha with his allies intact. After checking his soul to make sure he wasn't lying, Naruto injected the substance into his arm. "Good, now inject this into your arm," he said, tossing Naruto a syringe filled with a clear liquid. "You take that and I'll let your students go." After feeling dizzy, he fainted. The white-haired man picked up Naruto and knocked out the 3 genin. The snake sage said, "That went just as planned." He had to find a bargaining chip because he knew he had no chance against Naruto in a 1-on-1 battle after witnessing the battle in the arena. It came in the form of 3 genin. He was taking a chance because he didn't know Naruto's opinion of his allies, but it paid off. It was nighttime when the genin awoke, and their sensei was nowhere to be found. They had to return quickly to the village to report the incident. Base-hidden Naruto was shackled to a surgical table, his head spinning, and he was groggy when he woke up. After waiting for roughly 10 minutes, the white-haired assistant entered the room carrying medication and surgical supplies. He held a scalpel in his right hand as he stood there staring at Naruto. Naruto was not in the least bit intimidated because he had faced demons 1,000 times more formidable than himself. Naruto chose to cause discomfort to his captor by releasing enough killing intent to induce vomiting in the white-haired man. However, the snake sage thrust a sword between Naruto's ribs before he had let go enough. It hurt more than it should have because he didn't anticipate it. "Hello Naruto. As you know, I am Orochimaru and this is my assistant Kabuto. All we want to know is what you know about your village. If you tell us then you will be let go, if not then." The snake laughed. "I will let Kabuto weaken your mind so that we can find out what you know. What's your choice?" Kabuto moved forward after Naruto remained silent, and he glanced at Orochimaru, who nodded. Then he picked up a blunt metal pipe and put his scalpel back in his holster. Naruto let out a cry of agony as he brought it down hard on his rib cage. Then he moved on to the opposite side and did the same. "How about now?" Orochimaru approached Naruto once more. When Naruto saw that Orochimaru's soul was being eaten by hollow parasites, he said nothing. It indicated that the hollows were influencing Orochimaru and that the hollows were the reason he was evil rather than his own choice. Since destroying them requires physical contact, which is currently out of the question, Naruto knew that the only way to get rid of them was to enter his inner world. Orochimaru gave Kabuto another nod before leaving the room. Kabuto then used his chakra scalpels to rupture Naruto's organs, with the exception of his stomach and lungs, after breaking nearly all of the bones in his arms and legs. Instead of healing him right away, he allowed the pain to set in, and Naruto's cries of anguish reverberated throughout the compound. Tower of Hokage, 12:30 p.m. After hearing the story from the genin, Minato summoned Kenji, Itachi, Enbu 6, Kakashi, Enko, and Team Kurenai to his office. About 15 minutes after they entered, Hinata asked Naruto where he was. The genin looked down, and Minato's eyes were sad. When Hinata realized, she inquired about his whereabouts. Kenji's hand automatically went to his kunai, saying, Team Kurenai will find out where Orochimaru took Naruto, then all teams will engage and neutralize Orochimaru. We don't know, he was taken by Orochimaru. The thought that they would finally be able to exact their revenge made Kenji and Enko smile. Sakura held Akan's weeping shoulder as she listened to the accounts of Orochimaru's test subject, and hoped her brother was spared the ordeal. The other ninja left, leaving just 4 people in the room. You will depart in the next 2 hours, so prepare and meet at the front gate. Enko, Kenji, and Akane wait here. I know that you 3 have a grudge against Orochimaru, but remember that this is a mission to save a ninja of Konoha also, do not let your emotions get to you, Minato said after glancing at the 3 ninja in front of him. Kenji wanted to exact revenge on Ren, Akane wanted to make sure the snake felt everything her brother did, and Enko wanted to kill Orochimaru for leaving her. However, for Kenji and Akane, saving their brother came first, and Enko had to pay Naruto back for opening her eyes. Being the first person at the gate, Hinata cried as she remembered the last time she had seen him and wondered what might happen if he passed away. He wouldn't be aware that she had forgiven him if he did. When Hinata turned around after feeling a hand on her shoulder, she saw her sensei. We will find him, Hinata, she said. She paused long enough to say, the last time I saw him, we had a fight. I wanted him to know that I didn't mean what I said, but now he is out there. What if he is dead? Then he will die thinking I hate him. Hey, come on Hinata, don't think like that, Kurenai said, giving her student a hug. Hinata nodded her head, but she was crying uncontrollably because she detested herself more than anyone could imagine. The teams left once they were all gathered outside the gate. After 3 days, the hidden base living in a broken body, Naruto was unable to muster the energy to do anything, including trying to breathe less because it hurt. In order to give Naruto the appearance of being starved and dehydrated, Kabuto fed him through an IV tube in his left arm. He didn't want to kill him, only to make his mind weak enough to examine his memories. This was the most agonizing pain Naruto had ever experienced, worse than when he was training with Kazuki and Yoruichi, as he thought about Hinata and his family. It seems like forever ago that he was training with Kazuki and Yoruichi, and he wished he could see them again to express his gratitude because he might have become like Orochimaru if they hadn't trained him. After healing Naruto's body, Kabuto got up and destroyed it once more. The Konoha forest once more, Kiba, Hinata, and Shino failed to find what they were looking for in order to find Naruto. Once more, the combat teams failed to find out if anyone in the nearby town knew anything. About 4 miles away from their location, however, Hinata noticed a fragment of a black kimono that resembled Naruto's. Shino planted a bug on me and got the combat team. When Hinata and I found the base, I'll crush the bug and you can follow the pheromone back to us. It's Naruto's, it has a ramen smell, in fact we could use this to find where they took him, Kiba said after following Hinata's instructions. After giving Kiba a bug and nodding, Shino hurried back to the camp, where Kiba and Akamaru crawled on all 4s and sniffed. After about an hour, they arrived at the entrance to a cave where they could hear cries of pain. Hinata wanted to rush inside to save Naruto, but Kiba stopped her. She stopped. What use was she to Naruto dead, sat down, and covered her ears while sobbing uncontrollably. Wait Hinata. If just us go in then there is no doubt that we will die. Almost immediately after Kiba crushed the bug, Shino detected the scent and led the combat teams in their direction. Within the base, Orochimaru went to the room where Naruto was and instructed Kabuto to enter the boy's head since he knew their location had been compromised. Kabuto nodded and went into the boy's head, only to find himself standing on a skyscraper at a right angle. He immediately pressed himself up against a window and looked up to see 3 figures approaching him. Naruto himself, a man in black with long, wavy hair, and a white Naruto with black teeth and yellow eyes. Kabuto got to his feet and kept himself on the building by using chakra. The white Naruto was first to speak. Well, what do we have here? The man that has been torturing us for the last 3 days. Let's see how we can get back at you. Observing his emptiness, Naruto remarked, you're probably just going to cut him up for the next 3 days. Our comrades are near, do you plan on making this one a vegetable? Zangetsu asked, glancing at Naruto. Naruto raised his eyebrows and replied, yes, he isn't influenced by hollows, so there is no reason to show any mercy. Also, my body is in no condition to fight, so I am hoping that someone will release me before they kill Orochimaru. The hollow Naruto uttered, hey, Zangetsu, I need to use you. A sword of the opposite color emerged from the skyscraper as Zangetsu nodded. With the sword in hand, Hollow Naruto began chopping Kabuto to pieces, but the fragments would simply reassemble Kabuto. After the first day, Kabuto wanted to simply die. On the second, he came to terms with it, and on the third, he didn't move when stabbed or scream when he was dismembered. His eyes revealed nothing. Hollow Naruto remarked, "Well, this got boring. Return him to his body, it seems that he has had enough," replied Naruto. Beyond the base, with the exception of Kenji and Itachi, who would be traveling alone, the teams were prepared to storm the base and would search with another team. Team Kurenai is represented by Team Kakashi, while Anbu Team 6 is represented by Team Anko. Only Kenji and Itachi were able to capture Orochimaru on their own. The others needed assistance to do so. Team Anko and Anbu 6's main goal is to free any prisoners they find, and their secondary goal is to assist Itachi and Kenji in neutralizing Orochimaru. Team Kakashi and Team Kurenai were tasked with finding and removing Naruto from the base. Shino used his bugs and Hinata activated her Byakugan to search the rooms they passed. Team Kakashi, Kurenai went toward the sounds of the screams but mysteriously stopped. When Hinata saw him, she shouted to her teammates, "I found him, but there is someone else on the room laying on the floor." She fled, with Akane at her heels, and upon entering the room, they discovered Naruto bloody and essentially destroyed, with the body of a white-haired man with conscience but a blank expression in his eyes. When Hinata saw that Naruto was restrained on the table by 4 shackles around his wrists and ankles, she rushed up to him and held his face. She then tore them off and met his eyes. Though he was guilty, he hardly said, "Hinata, please forgive me." With tears in her eyes, Hinata took his hand in hers and replied, "Yes, of course, Naruto." After quickly diagnosing Naruto, Sakura hurried to his side and declared, "I need to operate right now or we could lose him. He is in critical condition, if we move him he will die." Sakura saw what Naruto was trying to do and said, "Naruto," but he ignored her and continued trying. She repeated, "Naruto, I need you to concentrate." As he continued to ignore her, she insisted, "Naruto, the more you move the worse your condition gets, just stay still." Finally, Naruto had his fingers to the top of his face, where he curved and pulled them diagonally across his face. Naruto was surrounded by a cocoon of black energy after the 8 ninja were knocked against the room's walls by a blast of spiritual pressure. After it cleared, Naruto put on a new mask, which was primarily white with 3 red dots that traced the movement of his fingers. The fact that he had no scratches and that his pupils were now yellow and the whites of his eyes were black was another remarkable achievement. Orochimaru was waiting for someone to discover him while seated on a throne when Naruto peered through the walls. A ball of energy formed at the tip of his finger as he pointed it at the wall, and then a wave of black energy ripped through the base. Stepping to the room where Orochimaru was, Naruto Flash created another Sero and blasted through 200 feet of dirt. Flash stepped outside the base and grabbed Orochimaru's face. He laid Orochimaru on the ground and placed his hand on his chest. A wave of pain passed through Orochimaru, but after it passed, he felt as though his judgment was clearer and all of his experiments of the men, women, and children he killed and tortured weighed heavily on his conscience. He was about to kill himself when Naruto's hand stopped him from doing so, saying, "The choices you made were influenced by demons, it wasn't your fault. But if you're looking for redemption, travel the land and use the research you did to become a doctor." He had taken a kunai and placed it on his chest. The boy's words stayed with him. He killed and disfigured innocent people, but he was right. Instead of killing himself, he might as well spend the rest of his life helping others. Perhaps if he stayed, he could atone for his crimes and save more lives than he claimed. Orochimaru nodded and continued, "You're right, kid. I could do some good before I die. On the southeast side of the base you will find capsules that hold people. Right now only one is being occupied. Press the green button and a person that was close to your brother will wake up. Then destroy this base. No one can know of the research that went on here. If it falls into the wrong hands, well, let's not think of that." Naruto gave a nod and stated, "You should get away from here as soon as possible. If the ninjas come back they will want to take you in." Naruto followed Orochimaru's directions and located the room he mentioned after Orochimaru fled into the forest. It contained 7-meter tall glass tubes filled with liquid and a green LED light that made it appear green. Naruto discovered one occupied. It contained a girl with large pink lips, black eyes, and long, dark hair that reached the back of her thigh. After pressing the green button, the girl fell to the ground as the tube itself rose and the liquid drained out. After catching her, Naruto covered her with a blanket he had discovered in a nearby storage room. Then he picked her up and went back outside. Before the Konoha ninjas emerged from the base, he sat there for 10 minutes. Hinata's eyes met Naruto's as he rose to his feet and destroyed the base with a fully charged Getsuga Tensho. He used too much spiritual pressure, and his body had to rest after Hinata knocked down the weaker Naruto as they ran at each other. She sobbed in his shoulder. Hospital in Konoha. Naruto pushed the white sheets off his body and managed to sit up after waking up slowly and losing all memory of his location or how he got into a bed. He was seated in a white room with a single window that was obscured by blinds, preventing him from seeing the outside world, but he could tell it was night based on the amount of light entering the room. He turned his attention from the window to a wooden door that was barely open, allowing a glimmer of yellow light to enter the room. He made an effort to gather his thoughts, but all he could think about were fights and training. The only people he could recall were a blonde man and a woman with purple hair, but he couldn't recall their names. He raised his feet slowly over the bed's metal railing and leapt off, making a faint sound that sounded to Naruto like an explosion. Though he was taught to never take any chances in any situation, he stood motionless, unsure whether he was in enemy territory or not. When Sakura heard a creak from the room Naruto was in while she was seated in her corner office, she assumed he was having a bad dream. She remembered that Ino had claimed that her father had trouble sleeping for a month after looking through Naruto's memories. She wondered what the boy had seen, but she decided not to ask because Naruto was a little uncomfortable in social situations. As Naruto began to move once more, he noticed a black scroll with the word "seal" written on it and a piece of paper crossing the opening. Though he wasn't positive, it appeared to be his, so he took it and strapped it over his shoulder as quietly as he could. Then, using his hollow eyes, he looked around the hospital, finding a female doctor doing some paperwork down the hallway, similar stations on the lower floors, and, lastly, a big desk watching the front door. However, there were no guards outside, so Naruto decided to go that way. The purple-haired girl from his memories taught him that you should do things slowly to allow your suppressor's senses to adjust. He cautiously opened the window just enough to let a bug pass. Naruto was doing just that. After a minute or so, he managed to get through and realized that he was in a ninja village. He was always warned to avoid them but never given an explanation. Squeezing through the opening, he hung from the wall, searching for a way out. He was not helped by the abundance of light from the full moon, which made it easier for people to see him. That wasn't an option because the ground was crowded with civilians. Ninjas were on the roofs, but they appeared at ease. There is a wall about 200 feet high beyond the living grounds with masked shinobi on top. They're always on guard, but Naruto wouldn't have any trouble as long as he flashed past them. To reach the nearest building, he used a flash step and an energy-enhanced jump. He then repeated the process until he reached a roof that was less than 50 feet from the wall in question. He noticed a masked ninja directly in front of his intended landing spot. He waited, but the ninja remained in place. After swearing, Naruto leapt several roofs, but the ninja on the roof turned around when his leg struck a pot and knocked it over. The ninja approached the pot and watched as it mysteriously fell off a wooden shelf by itself while Naruto was clinging to a ledge. He approached the railing but was struck hard in the temple, rendering him unconscious. Naruto grabbed the ninja's body and placed him near his station. He reasoned that since he didn't know his surroundings well, he would have to leave if the body was discovered because the other ninjas in the village would undoubtedly be on high alert. The masked ninja was now facing away from him. He noticed as he glanced up the wall once more. When he got to the top, he kicked the guard in the head, but it vanished in a cloud of smoke. He had put a good deal of spiritual energy into his legs before jumping off the roof and latching onto the wall. With a kunai in hand, the masked ninja hurried towards Naruto after saying, "Don't underestimate us." When Naruto vanished, the Anbu was less than an inch from him. There was no smoke or other indication that it was ninjutsu of any kind. To alert the other Anbu on the wall that an intruder had left the village, the Anbu swore and threw a flare kunai into the air. Naruto was obviously worn out. Ever since he left the hospital, he had the sensation that a brick was pressing against his chest, preventing him from breathing, and his condition seemed to worsen each time he expended spiritual energy. He simply fled in whatever direction suited him because he was not familiar with the forest he was now in, but he did so quickly. Even though it took up valuable energy, he had to take a quick step back because the ninja had sent out some sort of signal and would soon be following him. He decided to take just one good one, so he sucked as much spiritual pressure as he could and pumped it into his knees before letting it out, which cracked the trees behind him. It paid off, though, because he was now at least 15 miles away from the village and they couldn't follow him because nearly the whole trip was in the air. Now that he felt like something was dragging him to the ground, Naruto attempted to move forward, but as soon as he did, his legs gave way and his body thudded to the ground. The following day, after awakening to find his mouth full of dirt and insects, Naruto sat up, brushed the debris away, and searched for a source of water. Although Naruto was cautious when using his spirit energy once more, he discovered that today's effects were different from yesterday's. He opened his hollow eyes and surveyed the area. A small but steady stream was located about 2.5 miles away, and a small village 4 miles farther away was clearly not part of any elemental village due to the absence of ninja. He reached the stream in 10 seconds without the debilitating effects of spiritual energy. After washing his face and mouth to remove the taste of the dirt, he stepped to the village to take a look around. It was a reasonably sized and clean civilian village, but there were many ninja moving through the area. In all honesty, he was hoping to locate the 2 individuals he remembered, but he was unsuccessful. Sitting in a dango shop, he considered his options. He knew that he had woken up in a ninja village, alerted a masked ninja who likely informed his superiors of the situation, and that he could only recall 2 individuals. Almost everything was unknown to him. First, he didn't know his name. Second, he didn't know the names of the 2 people. Third, he didn't know how he ended up in a ninja village. And finally, he couldn't recall his past. He was as alone and perplexed as he had been yesterday. 2 men sat behind him. One had pale skin, a huge red scythe, and a mouth worse than a sailor's, while the other wore a black mask that said nothing and a white wrap around his head. Naruto made the decision to listen in. "Shut up, this goes against everything my religion teaches. Who gives a shit? We are ordered to get money and that's what we will do." "Fuck you in this book," the scythe-wielding man said, hurling a small black book across the room. "I don't need one, you having one is good enough. I never told you to get a book, you just picked it up off a dead body. You little fucker, don't talk down to me." The man with the scythe followed the man wearing the mask after he said, "You're lucky you're immortal." Naruto approached the book and picked it up. It contained the names and images of ninjas that were wanted. 2 in particular caught his attention: the blonde-haired man and the purple-haired woman he was seeking. They both bore the stamp, "Captured and Executed." Naruto was unsure of what to think. He was certain that these individuals could help him remember who he was, but now he was at a loss for what to do. However, he was certain that he had no money and that this book could help him. Naruto's eyes nearly popped out of his sockets as he turned the pages and saw the photos of the 2 ninja who had just left the restaurant. One read 1,000,000 ryo while wearing a mask, while the other read 500,000. He continued to read the pages and discovered some other fascinating individuals, ranging from demon containers that had escaped their village to elderly samurai. "Well, my luck just changed," he thought. He currently has no direction in life, so this was the ideal thing to keep him busy until he discovered anything that would provide a clue about his past. It was just what I needed to keep me busy. A tiny community outside of Konoha. Naruto left the dango shop and entered the dirt road. Although his 2 targets were directly in front of him, Naruto trailed behind them. Naruto made the decision to listen in and learn as much as he could about the 2 men, who were now known as Kakuzu and Hidan, as they made their way towards the forest. "You get drunk, slaughter anything that you come across, and then you try to give me a hug with your impaled body. No shit, I'm gonna push you away. But Kakuzu, I need some love too. Your love is ripping a person apart limb from limb. And you're the perfect person for the job. I'm not a doll. Anyway, doesn't your religion say you have to kill people?" Hidan attempted to embrace Kakuzu but was suffocated by black threads that emerged from beneath Kakuzu's clothing. "Yeah, you're right. Now come here, you big teddy bear." "Oh, you stupid fuck, do you know how much that hurts?" The impaled body shocked the onlookers on the streets. Naruto questioned why his partner would do that, but then he recalled what he had heard about Hidan's immortality in the dango shop. "I told you I don't want a hug, so you fucking impale me, crazy monkey shit, let me go." The people on the street stared in shock at how the man was obviously impaled, but no blood leaked out of his body as Kakuzu's threads retreated back into his body. After pondering how he would murder the man, Naruto took out the bingo book and turned to the profile of the man. Naruto sighed as he realized that he would have to endure Hidan's slanderous remarks on the way to the closest claim station, since the name and image stated that the man would have to be brought in alive because he was unkillable. Kakuzu turned around and asked Naruto, "What do you want, kid?" as they were finally outside the village. With a finger pointing, Naruto addressed Kakuzu, saying, "You." Kakuzu maintained eye contact while Hidan laughed, curious to see if the boy was telling the truth or if he was just a simpleton who picked up a weapon and believed he could fight. Whoever this man was had a great deal of combat experience and virtually no fears, as Naruto activated his hollow eyes without breaking eye contact. "Okay. But let's go somewhere else so that we don't accidentally kill any civilians," Kakuzu said, nodding. Their conversation was cut off when Hidan said, "To hell with the villagers, they can burn in hell. In fact, that is where I plan on taking them." Naruto's elbow struck his chest as he was about to unsheathe his scythe and head back toward the village. It appeared to happen in slow motion, but Hidan was flung from Naruto's elbow and flew farther into the forest. Kakuzu nodded in response to Naruto's nod, and the two of them left to go find Hidan. Hidan was placed in a humiliating position after Naruto's punch pushed him into a tree with his face facing the tree and his ass out. Kakuzu then kicked Hidan's ass, causing him to roll over and moan in agony. With an irritated tone, Kakuzu said, "Stay here and don't interrupt." Hidan chose to sit up against a tree and watch the fight instead of responding. Kakuzu got back up and lowered himself into a fighting stance, his arms out in front of him balled into fists, his left foot half a step forward, and his knees slightly bent. After making his sword appear and bringing both hands to the handle, Naruto moved forward, putting his right foot back. 5 tiny threads emerged from Kakuzu's fingertips and headed directly for Naruto's heart. However, before they could connect, Naruto disappeared and reappeared directly behind Kakuzu, his sword at his side, prepared to bring it across to decapitate him. However, a ball of precisely calibrated air struck him, sending him flying back through a few trees and into a clearing with a river that sliced through the middle. Naruto stood up again and waited for Kakuzu to reappear, but 4 masked black masses entered the clearing instead. The red and gray masks began to swell, and when the red one burst, a huge ball of flame shot directly at Naruto. A few seconds later, the gray mask burst, creating a ball of air that struck the flame ball, making it swell and heat up. 3 threads emerged from the ground and wrapped themselves around Naruto's arms and legs, preventing him from moving or lowering his sword as he raised it over his head to use a Getsuga. He had no other option but to scream, "Bankia!" Naruto's body was encased in black energy, which shielded him from the fireball and tore the threads apart atom by atom, allowing his body to move freely. Kakuzu retracted his threads after the smoke had cleared, revealing that at least 5 feet of the thread were gone and the tips were severely burned. He noticed that Naruto was different from the previous one. He was wearing a white mask with 3 red lines across it, and his eyes were glowing yellow. The sword was also different. It was now entirely black, with black grips covering the red underarm finger grips. All of Kakuzu's masks began to charge, but he was curious about the boy's name and asked, "What's your name, kid?" After giving him a look, Naruto remarked, "I'm not sure." Naruto condensed a ball of red energy that ate away at the ground and its surroundings after Kakuzu nodded and pointed 2 fingers at the 5. Kakuzu stood motionless, but he wasn't sure if he could defeat this one. While the earth mask stood there seemingly doing nothing, the fire mask joined with the wind mask to prepare another fireball. The water mask formed a ball of water, froze it, and then produced thousands of ice needles. When they fired, Naruto was hit by a beam of light that emerged from the earth mask, a shower of ice needles, and a fireball that made the last one appear like a rubber ball. The fireball was split in 2, causing it to explode and send dirt flying, but the light beam was more resilient and took longer to destroy it, just long enough for Kakuzu to move out of the way. Naruto released the energy he had condensed and launched a wave of black energy that melted and evaporated the water, covering the battleground in steam. The 4 masks were easily destroyed by Naruto's attack, but Kakuzu was nowhere to be seen. He opened his hollow eyes to see that Kakuzu was standing behind him, holding a sword made of his thread. Kakuzu ducked to the side as Naruto counterattacked and attempted a straight stab at his throat. After locking eyes, Naruto and Kakuzu began to form circles. Naruto attacked first, slashing across the chest, but Kakuzu followed suit, their swords forming an X. In an attempt to finish the battle with a single, clean cut, Naruto was pushing Kakuzu's sword down and aiming it at Kakuzu's critical areas, but Kakuzu's sword encircled Naruto. After realizing what was going on, Naruto encircled the blade with black spirit energy to destroy the threads. With nothing between them, Naruto stabbed Kakuzu's chest, slicing through some thread and a beating heart. It worked, and Naruto had an easy way into Kakuzu's defense and took it. Following Kakuzu's near-death collapse, Naruto knelt next to him and uttered the words, "Thank you for letting me win the fight." Kakuzu coughed up some blood while laughing. "You won with your own strength, but do something for me. In our motel room back in the village is a girl. She is a Jinchuriki. Sealed inside her is the two-tailed demon cat. It was my mission to capture her and seal the cat, but it seems that won't be possible now. I'm not asking you to complete my mission, I want you to do what you think is right." With a nod, Naruto declared, "I will do the right thing." He then struck Kakuzu's forehead with the lower portion of his hilt, granting him entry to the Soul Society. Naruto got to his feet, but a red and white scythe nearly severed his head. He turned to see Hidan wearing a furious expression. "You fucking psychopath, you killed Kakuzu." "Yes, I did." Naruto raised his sword and remarked, "It seems like you want to fight, but I don't want to kill you." "Yes I do," Kakuzu replied. Fine, Hidan was even more enraged than before when Kakuzu swung his scythe, but Naruto disappeared along with Kakuzu's body before it could strike. Returning to the village, Naruto located the motel Kakuzu had told him about. It had a brown roof and was unassuming, but the interior was lovely. Naruto found the room where the girl was supposed to be by climbing the carpeted stairs. Upon opening what appeared to be a black chest-shaped box, he discovered a woman in her 20s with long, blonde hair in a braid. After carefully picking her up and placing her on the bed, he saw that she was still alive despite being bruised and bleeding all over. When Naruto touched her forehead, her wounds gradually started to heal and she regained consciousness. Her fingernails grew and cut across his mask when she eventually opened her eyes. She said, "Who are you?" Naruto answered, "I don't know, but I'm not here to harm you." "Then why did you attack me and lock me in that damn box?" she asked, not believing him. "You stupid fuck," a voice over the hallway said. Naruto turned to the wall and used a Getsuga Tensho to blast it open after saying, "We need to leave, now." He then grabbed the woman by the waist and flashed back into the forest. She had a perplexed expression on her face when he looked back down. "How did we get here? Was it a teleportation technique?" "No, and now isn't the time for questions either. Come on, we need to keep moving or the lunatic will catch up to us." "But you never answered my question, and how do I know I can trust you?" "I'll explain while we walk, and you don't have to follow me. It was a last wish that I do something with you so I'll free you." "No, I don't know where I am so I'll follow you, but can you take me back to Kumo, please?" "Sure. The next station is that way and there are a lot of heads with high prices, so why not?" "Thank you, but I never got your name. I don't know it." "Ooh, I see. Did you lose your memory?" "Yay, that's probably what happened. Can I ask you a question?" Sure. The man I killed called you a Jin. A Jinchuriki, right? It means that I have a demon sealed inside me, but I have full control over her, so don't worry about her trying to kill you." Immediately assuming she was referring to a hollow, Naruto searched her soul and discovered that she had two, one of which was imprisoned inside the other. "Can I talk to it?" "I'm not sure that's possible, but if you can find a way then I guess it's okay." Naruto reached over and gave her a gentle shoulder touch before being abruptly flung into a maze of seals. He heard conversation but didn't believe it. He saw the demon, a two-tailed cat, when he activated his hollow eyes, but he didn't sense the presence that a hollow would emit. He approached the cat and entered a huge room where the girl and a blue flame-shaped cat with two enormous tails waving behind it were waiting for him. Naruto questioned the cat, "So you are the demon, but you are not a hollow, so what are you really?" "A hollow? You must be the new soul sage. It's my honor to meet you, Shinigami. Sama, I am the two-tailed cat." "Shinigami. Sama, you are the Shinigami?" the Jinchuriki interrupted. Under his scratched mask, Naruto grinned and said, "No, I am a Shinigami. There are a lot more, including my boss, the original Shinigami. So what bring you here? I'm sure it's not my time yet." "No, it isn't. I just assumed that when this young lady here said that a demon was sealed inside her, I thought she was talking about a hollow, but you obviously aren't a hollow, so I'll take my leave." "Well, it was nice meeting you, Shinigami Sama." With a nod, Naruto left the seal, the Jinchuriki ogling him. "What?" Naruto said irritably. He detested being the center of attention. "Nothing. I was just expecting you to be taller and scarier." With a sigh, Naruto returned to the trail through the forest, searching for any indications of a red and white scythe but finding none. The Jinchuriki soon followed him as he emerged from behind the tree and proceeded down the path. "You shouldn't call her a demon. She isn't one and doesn't like being called one," replied Naruto. "I know, and I never do when I talk to her in my own head, but if I call her anything else people get mad and call me a demon lover." Naruto nodded, realizing her meaning. The Kumo Trail. Following Naruto along a dirt road are the Jinchuriki. Since it was revealed that Naruto was a Shinigami, they have not spoken, but Naruto was perfectly content with that. The Jinchuriki made the decision to speak up. "Aren't you curious about what my name is?" Naruto said. "No," in a tone that was almost irritated. He was deep in thought when the girl interrupted. She ignored his earlier response and said, "It's Yugito." She disliked being called Jinchuriki. Yugito chose to ask another question after Naruto nodded but remained silent. "Why are we running away from someone? I mean, aren't you the almighty Shinigami?" "Yes, I am the almighty Shinigami, but this is my human body, so I can't overdo it." "Ooh, I get it. Your spirit body must be the tall scary one said in legends." Yugito sighed in realization. After opening his bingo book and quickly flipping through the pages, Naruto paused at one and said to Yugito, 2,000,000 ryo. "What?" Yugito asked, looking perplexed. With her face on it, Naruto displayed a page from the bingo book and said, "That is how much money I will claim if you ask me another question." Although Naruto wasn't being serious, he was amused when the blonde stopped talking, allowing him some brief peace before she resumed her questions. Naruto looked at the book's map and saw that they were roughly 5 miles away from the closest claim station. Naruto dismissed this as a problem because he could use his hollow eyes to figure out how to enter the station, even though it was hidden in a restroom and didn't display any instructions. "Why are we going to a claim station without a body?" Yugito asked again, her confidence restored. Yugito realized right away that Naruto had sealed a body into the scroll when he showed her a tiny replica of the scroll he was carrying on his back. Yugito nodded, deciding to hold off on asking another question for the sake of her health. Naruto was gravely mistaken to believe that she had finally run out of questions. After 20 more minutes, they reached a simple bathroom with white walls. The book said that you could enter from either side of the room. Naruto entered through the male side, of course, and it was clean and odorless, which was unusual because rest stops like this one are rarely cleaned. When he opened his hollow eyes, he saw 2 ninjas in a morgue. They were both wearing black trench coats and a forehead protector without any emblems. To indicate that he was here to claim a bounty, Naruto approached a urinal and quickly flushed the toilet twice. The wall then opened to reveal a dimly lit, nearly black room with one ninja to his left and another behind a desk. Before the ninja on his left said, "You are here to claim a bounty?" Both of them gave Naruto a blank stare. "Yes," said Naruto, drawing out his black scroll and unfolding it. Kakuzu's body lay on the ground in a puff of smoke. "You killed him?" piqued the ninja's curiosity about the young man in front of him. "Yes," Naruto repeated plainly. The ninja nodded and turned to face the one behind the desk, who did the same while taking a small case out from beneath his desk. The ninja who greeted Naruto picked up the briefcase he had slid across the desk and handed it to him. As the ninja form behind the desk asked, "Do you plan on capturing other bounties?" After giving a nod, Naruto opened the tiny black scroll and closed the small case. "This will tell you how to enter the other claim stations. I am assuming that you have a bingo book which has a map," the ninja said, slipping a piece of paper from across the desk. "That book is outdated and unfortunately we don't have any updated ones, and we don't get any new ones until next week." Naruto took out his book and showed it to the man, who nodded. "The other stations might have a supply of updated ones if you care." After taking the paper from the desk and putting it in his book, Naruto walked away, leaving the station hidden by the wall. Yugito, who appeared to be searching for something, was waiting outside. Naruto anticipated her question, "Where's the money?" She asked again, "Can I see it?" as Naruto produced the scroll and pointed it out to the curious container. In order to silence her for a short while, Naruto said, "Sure you can, if you can open it." He handed Yugito the scroll, which could only be opened by burning the seal with spiritual pressure. Unable to grasp the situation quickly, Yugito attempted to pry open the scroll using a variety of chakra keys, but they failed to weaken it. Shinigami. Sama, which key do you use to open it? Naruto asked, grinning, as it appeared to be functioning for a short while before backfiring. Naruto sighed. "I don't know," and replied, "We'll be in Kumo territory in a few hours, then it's about a day's walk to your village." "I know, I think that I know the way from here." Naruto said, "Good," as he turned around and began to leave the blonde. "Where are you going? You know the way, right? There is no reason that you need me anymore." "But what if more of those guys come for me, or the guy with the red and white scythe finds me before I make it back to my village?" As he faded into the background, Naruto remarked, "Then you should fight harder than you did the last time." "Wait, I'll pay you if you come with me." When Naruto halted, he asked, "How much will you pay me?" She uttered, 100,000 ryo. In a begging tone. For a moment, Naruto asked himself, "Fine, but I expect the money when we arrive at the village." He could kill the girl, but that would weigh on his conscience, and that was the last thing he needed. There are some high bounties that would ease his mind in this way. "Fine. Not a problem, but your protection better be worth it." With a nod, Naruto declared, "It is Yugito, Sama." Although Yugito liked her new name, she felt it would be best to keep quiet about it because she was certain that doing so would spell her doom. Although Naruto wasn't particularly thrilled about her new title, he did it because it was the right thing to do. They strolled in silence until Yugito began to inquire, but Naruto interrupted her, stating that it was improper to inquire about her employee's personal life and that such inquiries should only be made by friends and close associates. Yugito realized he was correct, and for the next 6 hours they strolled together in silence. They were in a moderately sized village perched on the side of a mountain cliff. Naruto appeared to be unaffected by the high that would typically make someone feel ill. Before Naruto abruptly turned the corner, Yugito was wondering why this was happening and made the decision to make it a question. Although the street they were on was in a peaceful area of the city and lacked any distinguishable landmarks or other features, both Yugito and Naruto recognized a tall, white-haired man brandishing a red and white scythe. After grabbing Yugito by the waist and flash stepping outside of town on the dirt road leading to Kumo Ninja Village, Naruto put Yugito down and declared, "I'm going to flash step us to your village. Climb on my back." Fortunately for the two, the man was turned around. Yugito mounted Naruto after giving a nod. Flash stepped off an invisible wall that Naruto had constructed with his spiritual pressure and leapt into the air. It was too much for Yugito, but the world rushed past them, the trees turned green gobs, and a flash of yellow and black flew through the air. Yugito puked in a bush as she kicked Naruto between the legs, causing him to instantly stop and double over in agony. Naruto questioned, "Why would you do that?" "I couldn't speak, and you were going too fast so I kicked you. I wasn't aiming for your manhood but it just got in the way." After pausing, Naruto said, "All right, we'll just walk since we're not more than a mile from Kumo." Yugito was shocked to hear, "Less than a mile? How? I can't even to that when I use Matabi. I am the Almighty Soul Reaper. Human limitations have no effect on me." The all-powerful Soul Reaper told her he was joking, but Yugito didn't believe him. Yugito bowed to him. "What do you mean? Not even the Yondaime Hokage is faster than you." Something about that name made Naruto feel as though he should know it, but he was unable to think of it at the time. Which village does the Yondaime belong to? He asked himself. "You're joking, right? He belongs to the Konoha Leaf Village in the Land of Fire. He is the most powerful ninja alive and has beaten our Raikage dozens of times. Some even say that he did it in less than a minute." After giving it some serious thought, Naruto felt as though something was missing, but he was unable to make the memories come to life. When Yugito became concerned, he stood there for a minute without saying anything. "Hey, are you alright?" Looking up, Naruto remarked, "We should keep moving." With a nod, Yugito headed up the mountain trail, with Naruto trailing closely behind, lost in contemplation. Two tall, burly figures with light brown skin and white hair, both of whom carried long katanas on their backs, stopped them as they approached the gates. The one on the right said, "Welcome back, Yugito Sama," as they instantly dropped to one knee upon seeing Yugito. "I need to talk to Raikage Sama, and I need to bring this man with me," Yugito said after nodding. She gestured to Naruto, saying, "He saved me from my captors and deserves some compensation." After nodding, the two guards led Naruto to the Raikage's mansion, with one following him. A man with a large belly, sunglasses, white hair in a cornrow, and 3 blue tattoos beneath his left eye emerged from a room as they reached a hallway. After a brief moment of eye contact, the tall man began rapping. "Killer Bee, 8 swords style form the east, kick your ass like Louis Kong, 2 tails ain't got nothing on my game." After giving Killer Bee a quick glance, Yugito began to rap back, 2 tails, the beast from the east. "Got 2 dicks, call that double penetration, I'll put my clown suit on and give you a fair warning, you mess with me you gonna get burned." With a smile on his face, the tall man threw out his fist and said, "Yo." Naruto did nothing, so Yugito bumped his fist with hers and said, "Yo back." After glancing at Naruto, Killer Bee clenched his fist, and Naruto simply began to strike. Yugito bumped Killer Bee's fist back and held it there for a while, making the motion Naruto was meant to make. With a frown, Killer Bee said, "Fool, you're in the wrong village, it's gonna be the end of you." He was staring Naruto in the eye. "You are aware of who I am," Naruto said. The frown vanished as Killer Bee's expression changed to one of surprise. Orange-haired Shinigami, truly scary, but lost his memories. Naruto questioned, "How do you know I am a Soul Reaper?" The sacred fist bump, Kumo to Kumo, Kumo to Kono. "By bumping my fist, he can read my thoughts, Naruto." The man was a born fighter, but his raps needed a lot of work. Naruto opened his hollow eyes and gazed into the man's soul. Apart from that, though, he had a different soul inside of him that was similar to Yugito's soul. The man was pushed against his will into the seal maze after Naruto reached out and touched his forearm. However, unlike when he was with Yugito, he was taken outside the cage. Killer Bee was inside, standing on the muzzle of a gigantic bison octopus, its 8 tentacles flapping freely behind it as it held itself upright with its balled fists. As if it didn't matter, Naruto gazed at the creature and the fact that Killer Bee was simply standing on it. "So this is the new Soul Sage, you don't look like much boy, but who am I to judge? You are another tailed beast? No, I'm a kitten that found its way into this damn host. I'm going to enjoy reaping your soul. Well, that's not going to be anytime soon. I can wait. For how long? A year, 10 years, 100, 1,000. I'll wait. Fine. But don't let me become a hollow or you might have to deal with a Vasto, Lord." "It's funny that you're turning into a Vasto, Lord," Naruto said with a laugh. "You being stronger than a captain, that's bullshit," the beast laughed back. "I think I should take my leave, asshole, Sama. You little shit, when I get out of here I'm gonna." Naruto left before hearing the final line, so Hachibi turned to face Killer Bee, who said, "That fool. He sure as hell has guts, maybe the god of death made a good choice with him." Given that Killer Bee was still alive, the god of death is smart as shit. Raikage's office at 9 p.m. Behind his enormous oak desk, the Raikage sat in his black leather chair. Across from him were 2 Jinchuriki from his village and a man in a simple back samurai kimono with a back scroll strapped across his back, as well as a white mask with a red design. After stepping forward and bowing, Yugito said, "Raikage Sama, Yugito Ni reporting in." After glancing at her, the Raikage nodded, allowing her to proceed. 2 days ago I was training in our fields by myself. 2 men approached me, both were wearing a black coat with red clouds on them and were very powerful ninja. The one who defeated me had a large red and white scythe with white hair and spoke as if he was a religious man. The other is now deceased. They spoke the name Akatsuki a few times in our battle, but they didn't tell me much about it. The man with the scythe has the ability of Jashin followers, meaning if he cuts you the battle is already over. I don't recall anything after that until the Shinigami glanced over her shoulder at Naruto. "Saved me. He killed the stronger person of the duo but was unable to continue because his material body couldn't cope with the strain. The Raikage studied Naruto closely and committed all of his information to memory. When his informants informed him that the child he had abducted years prior had returned to Konoha and was the new Shinigami, the Raikage grinned. This was the ideal chance to eliminate a significant liability for his village. The two Jinchuriki retreated as the Raikage's chakra suddenly spiked, enveloping him in a blue shield. But Naruto remained motionless, waiting for the Raikage to attack. The large brown man vanished into thin air and was directly in front of Naruto. Unprepared for such a high speed, Naruto was struck in the stomach, which caused him to fly through the mansion's walls, across the village, and into the village's outskirts. Yugito turned to face the Raikage, who was grinning broadly and seemed to think this so-called Shinigami was nothing. He was fortunate to be able to reroute the spiritual pressure to his abs, which hardened them and allowed him to absorb the majority of the Raikage's punch, but this time he wouldn't be caught off guard. Naruto rose from the crater his body had made and gazed at the Raikage's tower. With his other hand on his elbow, he raised his sword and yelled, "Bankia!" But he made it extremely ostentatious by bringing up a face with red eyes that glowed and a mouth full of sharp teeth that appeared to have limbs stuck in them. What was most frightening, though, was that it was so large that it could be seen all over Kumo. The Raikage shuddered as he saw the face that seemed to belong to the devil. Yugito and Killer Bee were frozen in terror behind him, their tailed beasts warning them not to engage in combat with a furious Shinigami. In order to enhance the effect, Naruto entered his spirit world, where a masked version of his hollow self and a younger Zangetsu were waiting for him. After examining his hollow form, Naruto uttered the words, "I need to borrow you full power." After giving him a quick glance and removing the mask, his hollow said, "Fine, but I want you to make a deal with me." "What kind of deal is it?" "I want you to give me a lot of sake and a shogi board that has all the pieces and one sacrifice." "Fine, but the sacrifice will have to wait until I find one that is evil enough." The hollow Naruto gave a nod and said, "Okay, done, but maybe you should ask the Raikage why he is trying to kill us in the first place. Maybe he will tell you where we are from and about your girlfriend." "You remember?" When Naruto called forth the hollow, his mask expanded around his body, two horns emerged from the back of his head and extended to the front, and his hair grew down to his waist. The hollow simply laughed and pushed Naruto back into his body with force. The hollow mask had now covered his entire body, and red fur was growing out of his wrists. Where his collar had been, his scroll had turned white, but the strap was still black as always. After a few minutes of waiting while the boy's expression subsided, the Raikage went to see what had happened to him. When he turned around, he saw a very irate and terrified Yugito and his brother frowning at him. The Raikage was thrown through the wall and 100 miles outside the village after he turned around and was struck in the face. The two perplexed Jinchuriki saw nothing but their Raikage standing there for a brief moment before he was replaced by this white figure brandishing a black sword as Naruto stood there staring at the hole he had made. When they turned around, they noticed that a hole had been made in the wall behind them. It then fell into place, and they both vanished through the hole to locate their Raikage while being encased in a strange chakra. The Raikage himself was shot into a lake, but the force carried him to the bottom before the water, which was absorbing much of the force, stopped him. When he arose, he discovered Yugito and Killer Bee waiting for him to recover in their second stage tailed beast mode. In an attempt to demonstrate that he could easily defeat the Raikage on an even playing field, Naruto was also waiting behind the three Kumo ninjas. The Raikage started to speak to the Jinchuriki, but he was interrupted when they gestured behind him. He turned to see the white figure who had punched him standing directly behind him. The Raikage was getting ready to attack after setting up his chakra shield when Naruto swung his sword behind him, creating a huge gash that sliced through everything in its path. When the Raikage realized he was outmatched, he turned to face his two Jinchuriki. Their beasts had warned them not to get involved in a fight involving an enraged Shinigami, but orders were orders, and Yugito had to obey them against her will. Their supply was cut off, and all of the chakra they had left was retracted back into their bodies when they attempted to switch into their tailed beasts mode. After glancing at them, the Raikage exclaimed, "What are you two doing? Our beasts cut off our supply, so all we have is the chakra that we got when we initially started to get control of our beasts. We can't transform." The Raikage appeared enraged. They were his only hope, and now they were cutting off their host's supplies. After glancing at Naruto, He made the decision to give it his all. He charged at Naruto, pumping as much chakra as he could into his right fist and legs. He decided to make his final blow matter and threw all of his chips into it. He ran past Naruto and through Kumo territory before stopping, turning around, and running the other way. While the Raikage was doing everything he could to at least get Naruto to move from his position, he was carrying a lot of momentum and struck the white figure who was waiting for him. The figure just raised his hand and stopped the attack with his palm. Before a fireball forced them to split apart, they were like that for a few seconds. Yugito was able to change and prevent the action from getting worse than it already was. "You're strong. I don't think I'll be able to kill you. Why don't we make a deal?" the Raikage said, glancing at Naruto. "You lost your memory, right? What if I tell you where you could find people that knew you and in return you never talk about what happened today?" the Raikage asked, waiting for a response but not receiving one. The Raikage assumed that Naruto was still interested in fighting when he didn't answer for a while. He was about to charge up his chakra once more when the white bone-like substance fell off Naruto's skin, revealing who he had been before. After meeting the Raikage's gaze and nodding in agreement, Naruto declared, "If you lie to me, I will be back and I will kill you." While Yugito and Killer Bee joined in and sat down next to the Raikage, Naruto remained upright while the Raikage nodded and approached him to sit on the ground. After exchanging glances, the Raikage and Naruto said, "Well, I should start by telling you your name, but to be completely honest, I don't know it. In fact, there isn't a lot of people who know about you except maybe those who've gotten close to you. All I know is that you spent 3 months in Konoha, so your best bet is to look there. Your father is the 4th Hokage." He paused and turned to face Yugito and Killer Bee, who were both in shock that the Shinigami was the 4th Hokage's Don. "But, I am not sure what your intentions were while you were over there. Maybe you wanted to kill someone or just return to your family." Though he wasn't sure how, Naruto nodded, feeling that he was somehow related to the 4th. However, the Raikage gave him a task to complete. He asked Yugito, "When are you going to pay me?" As she looked up at the Raikage, who was staring into the forest, Yugito said, "I can't right now. I'm sure the Raikage wouldn't want to lend me some money after what just happened, but she promised to reimburse him soon." After giving a nod, Naruto opened his bingo book, consulted the map, and then returned to the bounties. He traversed the last known locations of all the high bounty heads and drew out a trail that led to Konoha. The only disadvantage was that he would have to cross the Suna Desert, which he had no idea how to get through. With a glance up at the Raikage, he said, "I need an escort through Suna." The Raikage was about to justify his actions by claiming that none of his ninja were capable of navigating the desert when Yugito interrupted, saying, "I can take you. I know how to navigate with the stars." Naruto took her hand and Flash stepped 10 miles away from the Raikage and Killer Bee, leaving the AB combo in their wake. "Good, we leave now," he said. Yugito was staring at Naruto. "This isn't a straight shot to Konoha. I will be passing through towns and last seen locations of the high bounties. If you decide to help me, you will get 30% of all profits, and maybe before you are relieved you could pay me off." With a distressed look on her face, Yugito examined the map showing their stops before posing the question, "What if the Raikage gets mad at me for being gone for so long? Then you tell him that you were carrying out your mission like a true shinobi would." Yugito wasn't as hopeful, but she would deal with it when it happened. A warehouse near the border of Kumo. Because he didn't have an undated bingo book, Naruto had to figure out where to track down his prey manually. His bingo book informed him about a costly bounty that was last seen near the Kumo border. Normally, Yugito would accompany Naruto, but today he was going to give him a sacrifice and finish paying back his debt to his hollow side because the man he was pursuing deserved what his hollow side was going to do to him. The target's name was unknown, but it seems that he killed his own teammates and enjoyed abusing young children, making him the perfect sacrifice for Naruto right now. Naruto approached the front door and touched the handle, but as soon as he did, the door blew outward, knocking Naruto back without hurting him. The warehouse itself appeared to be in good condition and had recently been abandoned, making it a likely hiding place for the unidentified man. Naruto looked up to see a slender middle-aged man with a Kumo headband with a cut across it and a katana on his back. The first thing the man said was, "Who are you and why are you here?" The page with his face on it cost 700,000 ryo, and Naruto showed him it after opening his bingo book. Naruto retorted, "I'm here for your head and to claim your bounty." "Then you must have read my crimes. You should know that I enjoyed committing them," the man said, his mouth curving into a malevolent smile. Without a word, Naruto brought his sword to life. The man then unwrapped it and charged at him with a flame-engulfed blade. The man slashed at Naruto's throat, but the cleaver blocked the path and split the man's sword in two. Naruto's giant cleaver was immobilized by the blue spiritual energy. He glanced at his sword and then back at Naruto's unscratched cleaver. "How did you do that?" The man got up and attempted to flee into the forest, but Naruto was already in front of him with his sword to his throat. Instead of responding, Naruto punched the man in the face, sending him flying through the warehouse and out the other side. "Wait," the man begged. "I have money and lots of it in the warehouse. More than you could claim by killing me. If you let me go it will be all yours," the man said as Naruto waited. In an instant, the man's soul was torn from his body and transported into Naruto's inner world, where his hollow form was waiting for him with Zangetsu in hand. Naruto activated his hollow eyes, looked into the other man's brown eyes, and said, "Scum don't deserve my mercy." Naruto nodded at his hollow form, which then proceeded to dismember the victim, revive him, and repeat the process until he lost the spark in his eye that gave him his humanity and his screams ceased. "It seems that we have repaid our debt to ourselves." With a nod, the hollow Naruto turned to face the real Naruto, who then put the man back in his body and left his spirit world. Even though the man was still alive when he collapsed in front of Naruto, Naruto chose to show mercy by slitting the sadistic fuck's throat, killing him. Since he was going to hell for his crimes on Earth, there was no need to implant a soul release. Naruto took out a sealing scroll, sealed the man inside, then stood up and used his hollow eyes to look for the man's money stash. He concealed it well behind some debris and a room that appeared to have collapsed, but Naruto was unable to conceal it. Naruto put the cash in his scroll and departed the warehouse. Yugito was bored while waiting at their campsite. She had already explored the town and didn't want to walk there because she didn't have anything to do. She jumped up and went for Naruto's nose when he approached her and placed his hand on her shoulder, but as usual, she missed him because he vanished and then reappeared behind her. Naruto questioned, "When will you stop doing that?" Yugito retorted, "When you stop sneaking up on me, you fool." With a sigh, Naruto turned to face the sun. Since it was still morning, they should be able to depart and reach the next town by the fall of the night. Yugito caught Naruto's eye as he said, "Pack up camp and get ready to move out. I have to visit the claim station and claim the bounty." "You went on a bounty without me," Naruto said. "Yes," before vanishing from view. With a sigh, Yugito began to pack up her camp. She was too eager to see the various towns and villages to be particularly upset. She had never been on a lengthy journey before, with the exception of missions, which left little time for her to explore the towns and villages they passed. Additionally, because she was a Jinchuriki, her rakeage forbade her from leaving the village for extended periods of time. When Naruto entered a restaurant and showed the bartender the bingo book and the scroll, he nodded and allowed Naruto to enter the back, where he waited while the oven was set to 350 degrees. A staircase leading 50 feet underground and into a dimly lit room with two ninjas was revealed by the lifting of the ground beneath the oven. The first ninja took the scroll, opened the body, and identified it before nodding to the ninja behind the desk, who then took a suitcase and handed it to Naruto along with a black book that looked exactly like his own. "This is the updated bingo book. I'm sure you're aware that it has new bounties and the ones that are already killed are removed," said the ninja at the computer. After nodding, Naruto grabbed his suitcase and the little black book from the man's desk, closed the suitcase inside his scroll, and opened the book. When Naruto saw a crude drawing of himself wearing a mask, he stopped flipping through the pages. His bounty was only 1 million ryo, which made Naruto frown because he thought he was at least more valuable than Yugito, but it seems that whoever created these books didn't. Naruto turned around without saying another word, climbed the stairs, and left the restaurant with two other men who were all wearing gray cloaks with their faces covered by the hood. The two men turned to block Naruto's path after he had gone 10 steps outside, but he had already vanished when they did so. The two men exchanged glances before turning to face Naruto, who was standing where he should have been. They then turned to face the path and noticed the boy walking calmly down it while holding a giant cleaver. The men took a step forward, but as they looked down, they discovered that the vein connecting their leg to their feet had been severed, making it impossible for them to walk. They also experienced severe pain at their ankles. Naruto was still angry about the price on his head and wasn't in the mood to joke around with the two men. Flash retreated to the campsite, which Yugito had already dismantled and packed, after making a silent vow to exceed Yugito's bounty. Without a word, Naruto picked up his backpack and walked away. Yugito followed him, but he seemed off since he usually made his attendance known. Yugito inquired, "Something wrong, Shinigami-sama?" Naruto remained silent. The bingo book was thrown to Yugito instead, who caught it and looked inside. Her bounty remained the same, but she stopped at the one that appeared to be Naruto. "So you're mad because you're in the bingo book?" A furious Naruto remarked, "Look at your bounty and look at mine." "You're mad because my bounty is higher than yours?" Yugito asked, laughing. Before Yugito felt like she was being targeted for murder, Naruto remained silent, which caused her to start laughing. Yugito dropped her head into her knees until she felt the intent leave her as Naruto's hollow eyes, which had activated on their own, stared down at her. Yugito quietly stood up and trailed behind Naruto, attempting to blend in as he turned around and left. When they reached a border station a few hours later, Naruto approached and stood in front of two Suna ninjas who were sleeping. Naruto was walking beside Yugito when he remarked, "I think they're sleeping." Naruto sighed. He was aware of that already, but he was unaware of the reason behind the two ninjas on duty sleep. Naruto glanced at Yugito and nodded. Yugito then reached out and gave the man a gentle shoulder shake, causing him to stir and startle awake. The Suna ninja pulled out a kunai with 3 shuriken from his equipment pouch. He slashed Yugito's throat, causing her to back off, and was ready to throw the shuriken after her when Naruto grabbed his elbow and pinned both of his arms to the wall. Naruto said, "Slow down, we're not here to harm you." Naruto released him and took a step back as the ninja's breathing slowed and his muscles relaxed. The ninja then approached his partner and shook him, but he did not awaken. "Who are you and what do you need in Suna?" the Suna ninja asked, glancing at Yugito and Naruto. Yugito was the first to respond, saying, "I am Yugito of Kumo, and I am on a mission to escort this man through the desert." "Why were you sleeping on the job?" Naruto asked, glancing at the man. "I wasn't. 2 men put us under a genjutsu, but I was able to summon a weasel to warn the cage." "You mean that weasel?" Naruto asked, glancing to the side and noticing a half-dead, unconscious weasel 20 meters from them. Naruto and Yugito followed as the ninja turned to face Naruto and dashed in the direction of the animal. Naruto placed his hand on the weasel's head and applied his spiritual pressure to the animal's brain and injured organ in an attempt to awaken his summoning, but the ninja lacked the medical knowledge to recognize that he was in a coma. Naruto gave the weasel a forceful slap across the face to rouse it, and it succeeded. The animal gradually started to stir and open its eyes. "What was that for?" the weasel asked, glancing at Naruto. "Is it okay if we pass through?" Naruto asked, glancing at the Suna ninja without saying anything. "Yes," said the ninja, "but if you are passing our village, can you take the weasel? He holds important information and I'm sure our cage would pay you for helping." Before Yugito grabbed it and held it like a baby against her chest and exclaimed, "You're so furry and soft and cute." Naruto had taken the weasel by the neck and held it in front of his face. Naruto replied, "All right, we'll take him. Thank you, and if it wouldn't be too much trouble, could you hurry? I don't know how long we have been out, so for all we know they could be a day ahead of you or an hour." Yugito nodded in response to Naruto's nod, and she placed the weasel in her jacket and instructed it to get ready. After Yugito climbed on Naruto's back, they vanished through the desert in an instant. Yugito led Naruto by pointing with her finger until they came to a mountain with a straight path that went straight through it and a stair-like pattern that led to the summit. Yugito climbed off Naruto and placed the weasel on her shoulder after Naruto stopped 100 meters from the path. They approached the mountain slowly but saw neither a post nor any guards, unlike most other ninja villages. When Naruto realized that the ninjas were hiding on the mountain, waiting for enemies, he sighed and activated his hollow eyes. 2 Suna Chunin jumped in front of them, obstructing their path, just as they were about to enter it. The person on the right moved forward and questioned, "What is your business here?" "I have information that I was told to give to your cage. It regards 2 enemy ninja that has gotten through the border and could be heading here now." With a nod, the ninja instructed the group to follow him to the tower of the cage. Naruto decided to question his escort after noticing that everyone in the village was smiling and appeared carefree. "Your village seems very happy," Naruto said. Yes, it is because of our cage. He is a fair ruler and a great leader, and even after everything this village had done to him, he still had the patience to look past it and provide us with the best he can give. Tell me about his childhood. The ninja looked at him. He was mistreated and emotionally abused. He was forced to kill his uncle, and his mother died giving birth to him, while his father ordered assassins to try and kill him. The villagers were no better. They did everything they could to make his life into a living hell, which wasn't much because they were too scared to even get close to him. Naruto nodded and turned to face Yugito, who was crying. Her early years were similar to those of the cage, with the exception that she had never been the target of an assassination attempt. In a book, Naruto read that you should put your hand on someone's shoulder if they were hurt, and he did just that. With his hand just over the little bastard's shoulder, Yugito grinned as he looked at Naruto, but the weasel hissed at him. Cage's office in Suna. Naruto was not prepared for the cage. He was young, most likely in his late teens, had red hair, and had the kanji for love tattooed on his forehead. Although he had a gourd on his back and was dressed in red and black body armor, Naruto was most struck by his eyes, which were lifeless and cold, but something told Naruto not to put his trust in human eyes. After jumping onto the desk, the ferret on Yugito's shoulder reported everything that had transpired at the border station, including the ninja's pledge to compensate Yugito and Naruto. After giving a simple nod, the cage turned to face his two guests. Naruto's eyes met his, and he said, "You have the same eyes as me." Naruto gave a nod, but remained silent. "The Jinchuriki of the Two Tails has also come to my village. Why?" he asked Yugito after turning to face him. After bowing, Yugito said, "I am on a mission to escort a high-valued individual to Konoha." The cage gave a nod. "Do you plan on staying here for the night? I cannot get your money until tomorrow." It was night, and Naruto nodded as he glanced out the window. From what he understood, it was unsafe to travel through the desert at night. After nodding in return, the cage got to his feet, and two Suna Anbu suddenly materialize. "Escort these two to the shinobi guest rooms." After nodding, the Anbu led Yugito and Naruto out of the building and to a larger location a few blocks away. Another ninja was waiting for them when they arrived, saying, "You two must be the guests, please follow me." The man paused, opened the door to room number 1205 and gestured for Yugito to enter, then opened the door opposite, labeled 1216, and gestured for Naruto to enter. Yugito and Naruto nodded, and they walked a few steps behind the ninja to the 5th floor, where their rooms were waiting. His room was quite large for one person, with a simple white queen-sized bed with 4 pillows in the back corner, an 8-space oak dresser with a lamp on top, and a chandelier hanging in the center of the room, about 10 feet off the floor, that provided bright lighting. Before going to bed, Naruto entered the bathroom and quickly showered. He decided to investigate it on his own after sleeping for roughly 4 hours before waking up again because of a significant amount of murderous intent that had just entered Suna. After getting out of bed and putting on his black samurai kimono, he turned on his hollow eyes to look for any ninjas who might have been sent to ensure he stayed in his room. The roof and exterior were clear, despite the fact that there were 6 Anbu stationed in the hallway. In order to give the impression that he was floating, Naruto applied spiritual pressure to the soles of his feet to solidify the air beneath him before slowly opening his window and jumping out. When he looked up, he noticed a white bird flying overhead. It seemed strange in some way, but the intent to kill was obvious. A wall of sand slammed down on Naruto as he leapt into the air in the direction of the bird, forcing him to take a quick step back and emerge behind the cage. Naruto questioned, "What are you doing? Don't act irrationally, he hasn't shown any signs of being a threat yet. With that much killing intent, do you really think he is here to do anything else but attack your village?" Instead of responding, the cage turned back to face the bird that was still circling overhead. In anticipation of the treat's move, Naruto brought his sword to life and opened his hollow eyes, but it flew away instead. "Something isn't right, you can still feel it too, right?" Naruto asked, glancing at the cage. "Yes, the bird is gone, but the killing intent hasn't moved, which means that," the cage said, turning to face Naruto, but he was cut off when a giant white worm emerged from the road with a blonde man standing in its mouth. Naruto glanced at the man, his blue eyes and cocky smile screaming, "Punch me in the face." He had 2 angry mouths in the palms of his hands. "So this is the cage, and who is this? Could it be that man that killed Kakuzu?" Yes, I think it is him. You are not welcome in this village, leave or the case cage of this village will take affirmative action. Naruto didn't say anything. This fight wasn't about him, and he chose to stay out of it unless he had to, but he also didn't let his guard down. The blonde threw 5 clay spiders at the case cage, but they landed in the sand and exploded, leaving only a bulge in the sand. Affirmative action him. That sounds educated, young case cage, so in turn why don't I educate you about art? He said. The blonde leapt onto the claybird's back and flew into the air, while the case cage built a sand platform and trailed closely behind the man. Naruto observed the battle taking place in front of him. Nearly everyone in the village woke up and stared out the window as tendrils of sand were blown. The younger kids assumed a fireworks display was taking place, but the adults and ninja aren't as conceited. They knew that someone had attacked the village but were powerless to stop it. As the bird slowed down, Naruto noticed the blonde tossing handful after handful of clay birds, which simply circled around him. However, these birds were unique in that they produced a greater explosion than the others. There were now nearly 100 of these birds, and one bird could now destroy an entire tendril. Naruto knew he had no chance and chose to step in when the blonde pointed a finger at the case cage, causing the entire flock to charge at him. The case cage nodded and followed Naruto's instructions as he formed a spider web pattern of spiritual pressure and a final orb of spiritual pressure that would be their last line of defense. Naruto Flash stepped behind the case cage and said, "Create your sand barrier. I'll intertwine some of my energy to reinforce it." The villagers fell silent, and the blonde man grinned. He believed that the battle was over, but was shocked when the smoke cleared and the 2 warriors were still alive and unscratched. The birds eventually arrived at the sand orb, and they all aimed for the same spot. Each explosion caused an inch of sand to fall off, and the case cage realized this and attempted to move the sand, but the orb was shaking too violently. The final 10 birds were armed with an even more powerful explosive, which caused a foot of sand to fall off, exposing the blue final layer to the last 8 birds. With his sword tip pointing at the blonde, Naruto stood fully upright while the case cage was unable to get off one knee. His head was still ringing, and everything was swaying. Naruto's free hand went to his other hand's elbow and he screamed, "Bankia!" The case cage and the blonde saw a different Naruto without his mask after a black orb engulfed him and vanished. "Hokage!" Together, the blonde and case cage exclaimed, staring at the man before them. The blonde appeared troubled. He could feel the killing intent being placed on his, and it was nearly intolerable. He loved it. Naruto shook his head and said, "I am not the Hokage. In fact, I don't know who I am, but what I do know is that you are going to die." "H. Yes, that's right, show me your art so I can prove that mine is better him." Following instructions, Naruto rushed at the man and sliced off one of his arms, grinning at the shocked expression on the blonde's face as he fell and was caught by the bird. Naruto flashed in front of the man and stabbed him straight through the stomach, but his sword caught on something, causing the mass he had just stabbed to turn white and melt around the sword. The entire scene unfolded in slow motion, with the bird blowing up and sending a shockwave that knocked the case cage back, causing him to fall to the ground, only to be caught by a net that a few Suna ninja were supporting. The case cage looked up again to see if Naruto had escaped, but the mushroom was still blocking his vision. When Naruto saw the case cage, he was 200 feet above the smoke swirling around in his bird. Naruto activated his hollow eyes to see through the smoke, checked to make sure he was okay, then made sure no collateral damage had been done before searching for his prey. He jumped to the same height, looked the man in the eye, then flash. Stepped, took the bird's head, grabbed the blonde by the collar, and stabbed him in the heart. "You're strong, huh?" Naruto knew that the ultimate art meant a huge explosion, so he stepped 100 miles out of Suna and dropped the body, but as he turned to head back, the explosion went off, and Naruto was at ground zero. "You deserve it to see my ultimate art," he said, reaching into his pouch and placing some clay to his chest and placing it in a mouth just above his heart. It began to chew, turning the blonde into black lines that were coming together at the 4th mouth. The case cage saw Naruto vanish inside the village and heard a loud explosion and a bright flash of light to the east of his village. He set up a platform to investigate, but the farther he flew from his village, the larger the cloud became until he was directly over a giant crater. He searched desperately for the swordsman who had saved his village but was unable to locate him and decided it would be best to return to his village and send some recon squads, but as he flew back, he spotted a figure in black with a long black katana resting on his shoulder. After lowering himself, the Kazekage began to follow the man, saying, "Thank you for helping me protect my village. If you really want to thank me, have my money ready by 12 tomorrow, Kazekage, Sama." Gaara extended his hand to Naruto, who accepted it and shook back, saying, "My name is Gaara, and of course." "Will you please do me one more favor?" questioned Naruto. "Sure. If my employee wakes up and knows nothing of what happened this morning, don't say anything to her. She will bombard me with questions and I would much rather avoid that. Everyone in the village was woken up by the fight. I doubt that she would still be sleeping. Trust me. She is a very heavy sleeper." Suna and Naruto's hotel room. When Naruto heard a knock on his door, he slowly stood up, removed his kimono, and opened it to find Yugito grinning. "Hiya, sleeping in? You're usually a morning person, so that's not like you, but I suppose everyone has bad days." After grunting, Naruto shut the door behind him and went to the restroom to tidy up. 5 minutes later, he emerged once more and turned to face Yugito, asking, "Are you aware of what transpired last night?" For a moment, Yugito thought, "No, I was asleep. What happened, and why?" Yugito paused as Naruto shook his head and proceeded down the hallway to the stairs, thinking, "Something did happen and you're not telling me. Why else would you ask me what happened last night?" "I don't know what you're talking about," Naruto said, shaking his head once more. "You know I will find out, so why try to hide it from me?" "Fine, I'll tell you, but you have to give me your word to not ask me questions about it afterwards." Naruto sighed, realizing that she was correct, as she was as cunning as a cat and had ears to match. Yugito enthusiastically nodded, "Fine." Naruto went into great detail about everything that had happened the night before, from the start to his walk back to Suna, as they descended the stairs. The ninja from last night were waiting for them on the first floor, and Yugito had 1,000 questions, but she kept her word and kept quiet. "Shinigami. Sama, Yugito-san, please follow me to the dining hall for your breakfast," they said. "Thank you for your efforts last night, and Kazekage. Sama will have your money ready by the time you finish eating." After giving the ninja a nod, Naruto followed him to a large hall filled with food from all the elemental villages. He turned to face Yugito, who should have been by his side but disappeared. He turned to check if she was behind him, but she was nowhere to be seen, and then he turned back to the food and saw her piling food onto her plate. After giggling at Yugito's excitement, the Suna ninja turned to face Naruto and asked, "Is something wrong, Shinigami?" "Sama, we can create something else you like if you don't like anything here." "No, it just I never ate this kind of food before." "What sort of meal did you consume?" "I ate souls of worthy ninja and turned them into my personal army, but I got bored of them, so I split my army into two and made them kill each other. Then right after the battle I ate whatever sanity they had left." Naruto put his hand on the ninja's chest and said, "Yes, you have a good soul." "What did you think we Shinigami ate, this food?" Naruto asked, pointing to the food on the table, as the Suna ninja stepped back, clearly disturbed. "No, we eat souls, and right now yours is looking very tasty." Naruto tried the same trick on Yugito, who was suppressing her laughter, but she didn't fall for it. However, the Suna ninja believed Naruto was being serious. He felt like he was about to shit his pants when the Suna ninja took another step away from Naruto. Suddenly, Naruto flashed in front of him, causing him to lose his balance and fall backward with his ass firmly on the ground. Naruto stuck out his index finger and jabbed the frightened ninja in the forehead. The ninja looked up and met Naruto's eyes, saying, "Just kidding." The ninja was so happy that he could have kissed Naruto, but then his mind cleared and he realized that he had been duped into thinking that he was going to have his soul eaten. He turned to face Yugito, who was laughing and clenching her stomach, and he could swear he heard someone laugh. He got up, pulled out a chair, and buried his face in Naruto's arms. Yugito got up and approached the humiliated ninja, placing her hand on his shoulder and saying, "Hey, don't worry about it, was all in good hum." But before she could finish, she burst out laughing again, which made the ninja press his face further into his arms. As this was going on, Naruto made the decision to sample some of the food that the cooks had prepared for him. He took some bacon and scrambled eggs and sat down across from Yugito, and he ate for the next 10 minutes, being careful not to overeat. After Naruto was done, he turned to face Yugito, who was frantically trying to hide her smile because, apparently, too much smiling hurts the face, of something Naruto could never understand. Yugito, finish eating or you will leave hungry. Still laughing, Yugito stood up and sat down, while Naruto decided to meditate for a while before they left. When Yugito finished, she pulled on Naruto's shirt, which caused him to lose focus and come back to reality. Naruto nodded at the Suna ninja, who then rose from his chair and remarked, Cage. Sama will be at his tower. However, Cage. Sama's siblings, whom you will meet in the front lobby, will receive the honor of escorting you instead of me. There were two figures of opposite say waiting in the lobby. A medium-height woman with blonde hair tied into 4 short bundles and a giant fan on her back was the female. A short man in a cat costume with purple warrior marks on his face and 3 scrolls on his back stood next to her. Naruto nodded, rose from his seat, and departed without saying anything more, but Yugito left with a handful of bacon and bowed to the ninja before departing. After making a brief observation, Naruto said, You are the siblings of Gaara? Yes, we are, and you must be the Shinigami, said the male first. This is Tamari, and I'm Kankuro. We'll take you to the tower. From what I gather, you're a lot like the Gaara and don't like people, so it's our responsibility to keep the people outside from getting too close to you. Naruto appeared perplexed, asking, What crowd? Tamari opened the door with a smile and said, This crowd. Naruto was as scared as a kitten in water. He hated people and attention in the first place, but a whole crowd of people made him want to forget the money and leave the village. Thousands of villagers were waiting outside to see the village hero, and the majority of them were girls who were yelling their praise to Naruto while the ninjas were patiently sitting on the roofs hoping to get a glimpse of him before the throng of females engulfed him. When Yugito noticed Naruto hesitating, she thought of the ideal way to avenge all the times he had snuck up on her. She positioned herself behind Naruto and pushed him into the crowd with all her strength. Tamari and Kankuro were unable to react quickly enough to the sudden movement, and as a result, Naruto was sucked into the crowd. 4 Anbu arrived to help, but they soon lost sight of him, and Naruto felt as though he was being buried in hands that seemed to spread all over his groin and front body. In order to protect Naruto when he reappeared, Kankuro pulled out a scroll and unlocked a salamander. Like Puppet, but he never had the chance. After Naruto wrapped a cocoon of blue energy around himself and stood up, Flash walked down the street to the Cage's tower and into the lobby, which was empty of excited villagers. A few minutes later, Kankuro, Tamari, and Yugito entered the lobby and gazed at Naruto, who was missing the top of his samurai kimono and had lipstick on his mask. Well, that was weird. It was like someone pushed you into the crowd, Tamari said, breaking the silence first. Anyway, we should go meet Gaara, who is waiting for us in his office. Instead of speaking, Naruto simply stared at Yugito, who was trying to contain her laughter while staring at the ground. When the killing intent began to roll off of him, it was the final straw for Yugito, who burst out laughing, much to the confusion of Tamari's and Kankuro's, who thought the intent was directed at her. Naruto intensified the intent, making it difficult for Tamari and Kankuro to breathe, but Yugito was unable to stop her fit. Because she was accustomed to Naruto's intent, it didn't have nearly as much of an impact on her as it did on the siblings. Calm down, Shinigami. Sama, think of it as revenge for all the crap you did to me. The blonde said, Right, the Cage's office is this way. Naruto nodded and followed the two up a staircase and down a hallway to a door marked Cage's office. Gradually, the intent faded back into Naruto and the siblings were able to converse once more. After opening the door, Naruto went inside, followed by Yugito, Tamari, and finally Kankuro. Gaara was seated behind his desk, his head resting on the backs of his hands, and 2 suitcases that Naruto knew contained his money were lying next to his desk. Gaara said, The first suitcase contains your money for bringing us information about a threat to our homeland security. The second is money for saving the village, and this, drawing a gold hourglass pin from his desk drawer, is a symbol of respect. Kankuro approached the 2 suitcases and gave them to Naruto, who sealed them in his money scroll. As long as you don't do anything that could endanger our village, any Suna ninja will become your friend if you attach it to your headband when you obtain one. Thank you, Cage. Sama. I will be leaving your village now. Naruto nodded, took the pin, and pinned it to his shoulder before bowing. Naruto and Yugito followed him to the canyon gate that separated Suna from the desert. Gaara nodded and got up, saying, I will accompany you out of the village. I know a path through the rooftops that will keep you away from villagers. Please follow me. Gaara opened his window and made a platform out of sand for himself to stand on before jumping to the opposite roof. Gaara looked at Naruto. I hope our paths cross again, Kazekage. Sama, you are one of the only people that I can stand. Yes, Shinigami. Sama, I hope so too. Please don't hesitate to ask for my help. Gaara nodded. I'll see to it that you're treated like the hero you are in this village. Yugito bowed to the Kazekage and followed Naruto as he left the village without saying another word. Yugito approached Naruto and said, Wow, you are such a badass just walking off into the desert with no clue of direction. That's why I have you, so tell me, are we headed in the right direction? No, we are slightly off course, turn 16 degrees to your left and walk straight. Midnight at the Konoha border. In response to Yugito's, yawn from across the campsite, Naruto looked at the blonde and made a downward peace sign between his legs. After nodding and getting up, Yugito walked slowly to the fire pit and pretended to be trying to start a fire while Naruto applied some spiritual pressure. When she eventually succeeded, she nodded to Naruto, who disappeared and returned a moment later carrying 2 dead bodies. Since that appears to be the final bounty on your list, will we now travel to Konoha? Yugito was tossed the bodies after Naruto nodded, saying, Take them to the claim station in the morning. In response to Yugito's nod and subsequent recline, Naruto kicked her between the ribs and declared, It's your turn to keep watch. While Naruto unpacked his bag and crawled in, Yugito grunted and sat down on the log he had been on prior to the attack. Naruto tried his hardest to fall asleep, but it always seemed to elude him. This was his second night without sleep in a week. Naruto turned to face Yugito and discovered that she was sleeping on the log. He considered giving her another kick, but decided against it because he wasn't going to get any rest and there was no reason to interrupt her. Naruto was packing up his belongings when Yugito woke up, saying, You resemble a cat when you sleep. Yugito knew how dangerous it was to fall asleep in the forest, but for some reason, all of her training failed her in that moment, and she allowed sleep to overcome her. He took Yugito's sleeping bag, opened it completely, and covered her with the makeshift blanket. What? Yugito said. You roll into a ball with your knees tucked in. It makes you look like a cat. Whoa, do you look at me while I'm sleeping, Shinigami? Sama? I mean, you're kind of cute yourself, so you could just say that I'm attractive. Naruto lied, saying, I hate cats. He didn't want to give Yugito any more reasons to attack him. That's a lie. It's easy to tell when you lie because you never look me in the eye. Naruto pivoted and gestured toward the 2 corpses, saying, Aren't you supposed to be doing something? Naruto threw the bingo book to Yugito as she held out her hand, saying, Be back soon, I want to get to Konoha today. After nodding, Yugito left with the 2 bodies. When Naruto had finished packing their bags, Yugito had returned with a suitcase. Have you taken your share yet? Naruto inquired. Yugito said, Yeah, and they gave me this. She produced a black book that was exactly the same as the one Naruto had given her, saying, I think you may be happy with your new bounty. With a smile, Naruto took the book, turned to the page with his picture, and handed Yugito her bag before leaving, closing the book and putting it in his pocket. His new bounty was 3 million ryo, making him one of the highest bounties in the book. A few miles away from Konoha, Yugito became aware that they were being watched. She bumped into Naruto and whispered her suspicions, but Naruto didn't respond. They continued walking until 3 kunai emerged from the ground a foot from them. A masked figure with long dark hair that reached the back of the figure's thighs stopped them. What are you looking for? The Anbu inquired. Naruto answered, We want to enter Konoha. What made you choose the forest trail over the main road? There are stories of bandits and marauders ambushing people on the main road. We wanted to avoid that. You two seem like strong ninja. Bandits shouldn't be a problem for you. We are also avoiding a Jashin follower who goes by the name of Hidan. He wants revenge for me killing his partner Kakuzu. Following his nod, the Anbu said, Follow me, I will escort you to the main gate. After nodding, Naruto and Yugito walked a few steps behind the Anbu. Yugito glanced at Naruto but was unable to read his face due to the horrible mask that was always covering it. At the gate, Naruto saw a man with a huge white dog that he believed he should know, but he decided it would be best to avoid drawing attention to himself until he learned who he really was. The Raikage told him some of his past, but he wasn't sure if he was telling the truth or not. When they reached the main gate, The two custom ninjas just stared at Naruto for a moment before they finally spoke. Naruto. Sama. Fortunately, the man on the dog didn't turn around, but every other ninja they passed were giving Naruto a strange look. He was certain that he was in this village but simply didn't know what he was doing here. Naruto? Is that my name? You can't recall? No, I don't. After exchanging glances, the custom ninjas turned to face Naruto and said, "Wait here, we are going to get you to a hospital." They then turned to Yugito and said, "We will get another ninja to help you." They bowed and hurried off. After a few minutes, two medic ninjas arrived and brought Naruto to the Konoha hospital, which he knew was the same one from which he had escaped a month prior. He was led to an empty room and instructed to wait for a doctor to arrive to assist him. Naruto nodded and took a seat, and a few minutes later, a pink-haired ninja, carrying a clipboard, entered and asked, "Do you remember who I am?" Shaking his head, Naruto asked, "Should I?" "Yes, we did meet when you returned to Konoha. I am also one of your sister's closest friends, and you threatened to kill me if I inserted a needle into you." "My sister?" "Yes. Her name is Akane, but she is currently on a mission, but your mother will be here in a few." A red-headed, mature woman with open arms rushed in, grabbed Naruto, and squeezed the life out of him, interrupting the pink-haired ninja. When she finally stepped back, she asked, "Do you know who I am?" "I'm assuming you are my Ka-san." "Yes, but do you have any recollections of me?" After shaking his head, Naruto turned to face the pink-haired medic and asked, "Is there anything you can do to help me remember?" "We may have some jutsu that can help you regain your memory, but it's really a 50-50 chance. It might help or it might not. However, it's worth a try in any case." Naruto gave a nod. The ninja departed, leaving Naruto and Kushina alone. "All right, then I will schedule an appointment with the advanced medical unit as soon as possible. I will be back in a moment." "Is there a headband on me?" Naruto inquired. Looking at her son, Kushina said, "It's in your room at home, of course." "Why?" In order to identify himself as a friend of Suna ninjas, Naruto showed Kushina the gold hourglass pin he had been given. "The cage of Suna gave it to me and told me to pin it to my headband," Naruto explained. Only 5 ninja in the history of the ninja were granted honorary status by villages they did not belong to, which shocked Kushina. "How did you get this?" "I saved the cage and his village from a ninja group that's collecting Jinchuriki. I think they were called the Akat. Akat. Something. The Akatsuki are attempting to resurrect the fabled 10 tails and take over the world by harnessing the power of the 9-tailed beasts. Additionally, they are going after your sister Akane, who is home to the 9-tailed fox, the strongest of the 9. Is the fox entirely under her control? No, not yet. She needs to get stronger and lose all of her inner hate before we can even start." "I see. But anyway, have you seen your girlfriend yet? I'm sure she would be eager to see you." Surprised, Naruto said, "I have a girlfriend. Indeed, she is a piece of eye candy and goes by Hinata Hyuga. She is a little reserved, but after everything she endured with her family, who can blame her?" "Is she aware of my return?" "Yes, I believe so. I instructed the Anbu to inform her, so she ought to visit soon. It's likely that you also don't recall your students." "I have pupils." "Yes, exactly 3 of them. One from the Inuzaku clan, Nikuyu, who possesses a rare Keki Genkai. One from the Hyuga clan, Hanabi, who is your girlfriend's younger sister. And the grandson of the 3rd Hokage, Konohamaru, who you said has boundless potential." "Do they still attend my classes?" "Yup. After you get out of here they will be your responsibility again." "I see. Who has been instructing them while I've been away?" "Kakashi Hitaki. He was your sister's sensei and he did a very good job at it." "Where do my students rate in their class?" Naruto asked, letting go and nodding. Kushina laughed. "They are number 1 currently. They also want to take the Chunin exams next month, but they need your permission or they won't go." After nodding, Naruto leaned against the wall, waiting for the pink-haired ninja to return. However, a raven-haired ninja with pearl-white eyes and 2 of the largest breasts Naruto has ever seen entered instead of the pink-haired Kunoichi. After a brief moment of eye contact, she moved forward, placed a gentle hand on Naruto's, and asked, "Naruto, do you remember me?" Naruto was about to shake his head when a few memories suddenly came flooding back to him. He recalled how his mother and sister had interrupted their first kiss. Naruto removed his mask and pressed his face against Hinata's until their lips met. It was as tender and gentle as he remembered, but Hinata withdrew and cupped Naruto's face in her hands, asking, "Naruto, do you remember me?" "All I remember is our first kiss and how my mom and sister interrupted it." Hinata sat on the bed a few inches from Naruto, but Naruto closed the distance and took Hinata's hand in his, which made Hinata blush even more. She had just realized that Kushina was also in the room, watching the kiss. A few minutes later, the door opened once more, but this time, Naruto and another blonde man were stopped by the Anbu rather than the pink-haired ninja. Naruto interrupted them by saying, "No, I don't remember you. I am Kenji, your older brother, and this is my fiancé copyright Ren. You saved her when we raided Orochimaru's base," the blonde said first, nodding, but the Anbu already knew. "We wanted to express our gratitude and ask that you let us know if there is anything we can do to help." "What did Orochimaru want with you?" Naruto asked, nodding and turning to face the Anbu. "He wanted to see if he could activate my clan's Keki Genkai even though I was born without it." "Was he successful?" "I'm not sure yet. I feel like I have more to offer than my current combat abilities, but I don't even know what my clan's Keki Genkai was. No records exist. I am an orphan of war. I have no clan documents in Konoha." The pink-haired medic entered the room, glanced at Naruto and Hinata, and grinned, saying, "Your appointment will be tomorrow at 6 p.m. in this building. When you walk in, ask the person at the front desk for me. Sakura Haruno." The door opened again, but this time it was only Naruto that he wanted to see. Naruto gave a nod.
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.